Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geeky Geezers. I'm your host, Aged Boomer. This is my co-host, PaPa Pacelli.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to welcome to Geeky Geezers. This is the weekly stream where we talk about all things relevant in geek news, and sometimes not. Of course, I would argue, even though we talk about ESPN, aren't there sort of sports geeks? Is that a thing?
Absolutely, there is. And honestly, these things have become so closely interwound. I mean, you can make the argument, why is Disney involved in sports and why did they acquire the things they did? That's a separate issue, but they have, and it's relevant, and we need to talk about it.
I will say this again. Years back, Disney made some great sports movies. Did you ever see Miracle with Kurt Russell?
Oh my God! Yeah, I'd forgotten that was Disney. Yeah,
they had a line of Disney sports. I think Remember the Titans. That was another one of theirs.
Yeah.
I forgot what the name of it was. The one with Mark Wahlberg, where he, the guy who did amateur football on the side, but then he got picked up by the NFL. That was a true story too. And these are all good movies. I mean, I'm not even a sports guy, but I enjoyed these movies a lot.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because these are the kinds of stories that they're not huge, they're not big franchisey things.
No, but they're
good one-off films that people would enjoy, even people that aren't big sports fans.
Yeah.
But Disney has completely lost track of that because they've lost all the talent that would come up with stories like that.
Yeah, I guess so. So let's say hi to the chat.
Yeah.
Disney. You want to hear a nice Disney rant? Go on a deleted scenes channel. He was.
Yeah, unfortunately, because I was so tied up earlier today.
Well, I know you were doing stuff with him earlier. Yeah,
I had to bow out but I'll catch it on the rewatch. Sure.
Greetings and welcome to the insanity. Here we'll try to break it all down and make what sense we can of it. Hope you all enjoy. This is going to be a crazy evening. There are some bizarre stories tonight. Meaning, even if nothing's going on because of the strikes, we probably will still have stuff to talk about.
I think we will always have stuff to talk about. That's absolutely true. I think you're right. And honestly, I'm hoping that one day we're doing less talk about Hollywood and streaming services and more talk about some of our favorite YouTube channels.
Yeah. Horizon Talker, welcome. Speaking of YouTube channels, he's got one. Check it out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Dune pushback is going to hurt the theaters for sure.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks.
Deep Insect. A good evening to the experienced Geeky Geezers. What do you mean by experienced?
I'll take it. No, that's the upside of being a Geeky Geezer is the wisdom that comes with experience. I agree.
I was thinking like a Joe Pesci line. What do you mean by that?
What do you mean funny? Funny like I'm a clown? Funny like I'm here to amuse you? Is that what you're saying?
That's a wonderful scene. We did a wonderful rewatch of Goodfellas with Paulie from Latino Slant.
That was a lot of fun. My understanding was that whole scene was, well, it wasn't the scene that was improvised, but his delivery of those lines was improvised, and it totally took everyone off, and they just went with it, and that's why I think that scene worked so well.
But a lot of actors do that, especially in comedy films.
Yeah.
One of my problems with a lot of the Judd Apatow style comedy films was that he didn't know when to cut the improvisation. Like he would just keep letting it go on. I think that was a problem with the Ghostbusters, the Answer the Call movie. That from what I've heard, you just have scenes that go on forever. You have to cut these scenes. Even if it's funny to you, and there might be good stuff in there, you have to cut them because, again,
that's exactly what I was going to say, because I heard they had the same problem with Jim Carrey on Liar Liar, but the editing was perfect, kept his good stuff, cut the stuff that didn't work.
That's what you do. The actor, I don't even think the actors expect you to keep everything they do. They just
because they don't even know. Look, I know from experience, you don't know from moment to moment what's going to come out of your mouth, and you just go with it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it was going to be a ruined take anyway, because usually these things come out of forgetting a line or flubbing something or whatever, and you just kind of pick it up and go with it. My favorite is Madeline Kahn from the movie Clue. That bit about the flames and the
love that scene. Yes.
And she totally had lost what was in the script.
Flames,
but it was so funny.
Rising.
her co-stars were all trying not to crack up. It was so good.
What's funny how she hated the maid, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cliched French maid, right?
Right.
With the bustier and everything. And
Right.
I hated her so much. Like flames. And it's
like a burning flame. Like, and she's doing with her hands, and I'm like, this is just comic gold. And you don't know for sure as you're watching something like this if it was scripted that way, the director made her do it 12 times, or if this was the first take and she, was making it up. Turns out exactly,
Yeah, wonderful. Just she was a class act. I don't know what she's been up to lately. She's still with us? Let's table that conversation. We have enough. Unfortunately, as Big Al says, we have enough remembrances tonight. Thank you, Big Al. Bob Barker and Arleen Sorkin. We'll be talking about those two later.
No, 1999.
That's when she passed on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, too bad. The geezers get geeky and geeky get geezery.
Okay.
It says something to Madeline Kahn, though, that she's still in our minds, though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That we have not forgotten about her. That's the magic of cinema, right?
I guess that is as gray as this is. It's a little bit of a white pill. We're going through this period where we've got dumb people saying dumb things, putting out dumb movies that nobody likes or cares about and has nothing but derision for. And a generation, 2 generations from now, these people will not be remembered. They just won't.
No, it's really sad. Well, in some instances it's sad. Others it isn't so much.
Exactly.
Like I've argued the actress who was in the Little Mermaid movie, I'd like to see her in other things.
Well, you're going to get a chance to see her in The Color Purple, but not until next year.
They're doing it as a musical.
Are you serious?
I'm not.
I didn't know that aspect.
I believe they are. I don't know how I feel about that. That's a rather intense story if you've read the book or seen the movie.
Look, yeah. I've been wrong before, right? I've seen things turned into musicals and gone, oh, this actually really works. But more often than not, it's like, okay, this jumped the shark. You took a good story with gravitas and turned it into camp.
Jesse Gerardo, I don't know if I've seen you here before, but welcome to the stream.
Yeah, I've loved hanging out with you, man. I'm so glad you've been coming around. You are good people. Super appreciate you.
Continue Chronicles, good to see you. Netters of Netter Network, I get a hi, sweetie. Thank you. Auditor Dread, welcome. D Pensec, I think I already said hi to you. And Invincible.
Did we say hi to Big Al, or did we just mention
talk about the cartoon series on Amazon? I'm not sure.
I don't know anything about it.
Hey guys, been in Tennessee since last night. Got my mental math mixed a little. Possibly missing some streams last night.
It happens.
I've been to Tennessee a couple times.
The great thing about YouTube is you can watch it on your time. Go back and catch the streams if you want to.
I remember we were able to shoot up from Florida to Tennessee in a day. I don't know how we managed that. I guess it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, the drive. We actually got there by evening.
All of it has to do with the time you leave and, what
traffic and highway systems.
And whether it's the weekend or the weekday. Yeah, exactly.
But the lovely state, the parts I've seen of it. Went to the Grand Ole Opry. You've heard of that?
Of course, I've never been. I used to.
An interesting town. Yeah.
I mean, back in the 70s, they had a regular show from there, which I enjoyed. But
the radio show.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think they still do it. I don't know if it broadcasts everywhere. I wonder if it's online. They'd have to have it online, because when I was there, they were doing it like a radio show, and they were doing the advertising. And the one guy was talking about Dickies, which I guess is a clothing store that you can get like cowboy gear at and stuff.
Sure, I know of it. Yeah.
And it was a good time. I'm not even that into country music, but that was a good time. But hail to all. Just completed my stream catching 2 times speed. We'll rejoin the chat once I finish cooking.
So I got to talk as fast as I can just to make you think that something's going wrong with your computer and you can't follow me.
What's more important, you eating or you listening to some good commentary here, deleted scenes?
Well, I think what he's saying is he was just going to be listening and eating anyway. It's just he listens in fast speed to catch up to where we are currently. He wants to listen from the beginning, and I appreciate that.
Continue Chronicles. Yeah, the chick who played Little Mermaid is smoking hot. Doesn't look like Arrow. Would love to see her in some of the original. Let her be her own thing. Yeah, that's my sentiment exactly. And I'll say this: she was very poised. She wasn't snarky or nasty in any of the interviews she was on. So, Disney needs to do better. Hollywood needs to do better by, especially a lot of these actors that they're using as, I feel they're using them as bludgeons in the culture war, which I don't like Idris Elba, poor Idris Elba, the whole Bond controversy thing. And eventually he just got sick of being thrown in front of that.
He has handled it, as far as I've seen, he's handled it perfectly.
No, he's a good actor.
No comment. Yeah. And when people come to him, he's like, I'm not even involved in this conversation. Yeah. People keep talking about me. I've never been approached. It's not something that's even on my radar. We'll talk about it if it ever comes to pass.
Yeah, Rachel Ziegler is the next coming of Brie Larson. Yeah, we kind of ranted about her last week.
I did note on a video someone else did. I'd been saying that for a while until I had a sudden realization that whereas Brie Larson was toxic, but she was backed up by an army of stans, Rachel Ziegler does not have that backup. Nobody is on her side.
Interesting. I mean, she's a pretty actress. I'll give that for her, but
but that only takes you so far. Yes. Most people, when they see a toxic attitude, and more guys are doing this to their own detriment to a certain degree, are just going, okay, I don't dip my wick in crazy. I'm staying the heck away from that, and rightly so. Be wise. Don't be swayed just by a pretty face. You need a whole lot more than that.
Yeah. Love Idris Elba. Would love to see him as John Stewart Green Lantern. Yeah, so would I. Definitely.
Yeah, he's a bit old for the role, though.
Probably, but again, they're having Guy Gardner in there played by Nathan Fillion. I don't know what they're doing over there.
Well, and Ted Kord is, we're not getting him. He's an old guy who's just a voice on a phone or something like that. So.
He's an AI in a computer, probably, right?
Oh, geez,
I don't know. I'm just trying to think what's the worst thing they could do. Anyway, but we're going to talk a little bit about the good old days. And since we have an Atari story later, and I know we've probably done Atari before, but we're going to do it again.
Oh, and real quick, Matanui just stopped in. Hey, Matanui.
Welcome, Matanui. The Atari 2600, we have a story about that later. That's rather timely. So that was your first game console. I know you told your Christmas story about how you were all nervous about getting, what was it? The Atari 2600, and you wanted Space Invaders, right?
Yeah. I used to go every Wednesday to Woolworth. They used to have the lunch counter there, and my grandmother would take me every Wednesday. We get bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches.
Those are always the best.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a diner. Can they screw this up? Food.
Yeah.
If you're ever sure you're in a diner, get a BLT.
Yeah.
Unless you're kosher, then you might be out of luck. But
well,
anyway, go ahead.
And they had one of those stand up, the Space Invaders games, and when I got an opportunity to play the game, I loved that game. Grandma would always give me quarters to go play it, and but the problem was when there was like 5 or 6 teenagers crowded around it, and they had their quarters all lined up, and I'm like, there's no way I'm ever going to even get in there. And not only that, but they didn't just go in, play a screen or two, and they were done. It was like they were really pushing for high scores. So it was a real bummer. And my thought was, if I could get one of those Atari 2600s, then I'd kind of have the game, myself at home.
Yes. And you get good at it.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Although, to be honest with you, as similar as it was, the skill did not translate back to the arcade.
No, it doesn't. I have a story about that too. I'll tell
sure.
a little bit. Yeah. But just because you're good at the home version doesn't mean you're good at the arcade version. They can be a different animal sometimes. Home version tend to be a little easier. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Well, you also have a great deal of flexibility there. You could set it on easier and harder. You could, you got different variations. There was only the one game you would play at the arcade. When you got home, you had all kinds of, and even on the Atari, like for Space Invaders, you could have 2 people playing at the same time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could have two players just like in the arcade where you take turns, or you could both be on screen at the same time. You could easier and harder was like whether or not you had a real wide tank at the bottom or a thinner one.
Was this I have a question. Was this two people on the same machine,
Yep.
or were there two machines linked up? Okay, two people on the same machine.
They didn't have the ability to link machines up back then. It was you both had your joysticks plugged in, and you set it to the game number that allowed you two players, and you got both players on screen at the same time.
Interesting.
Your scores were still separate, so you were still playing against each other for score, but you were working together against the invading forces, which was actually kind of cool if you had someone to play with. That is, there was, believe it or not, this isn't something that started with Nintendo or whatever. Mm-hmm. There was the ability to cheat. There were the equivalent of, you can't call them cheat codes because there was no input for codes, but there were things you could do.
Yes.
Flick the thing a certain number of times until this happened, and then press the button and so forth, so that in Space Invaders you could get rapid fire. So you just hold down the button and it would just.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Years later, I got a 7200 which looks like a black and silver ramp. Each joystick had a number pad like a phone has. Interesting. What was I going to say, though? Oh, you mean a 5200, I think. I think it was the 5200 and then the 7800. I think this 5200 had the phone thing. The 5200 gets no love, I've noticed. It's always 2600, and sometimes people wax nostalgic about 7800.
Well, you know why that is?
No,
I mean,
why?
My personal opinion, I don't know this is actually true.
Were you gunning for a 5200 when it was out?
No. Okay. See, that's just it. It was, I had the 2600, and I knew the sacrifice my parents put into, well, my mother, my uncle, and my grandmother put into getting it for me. When three adults in three separate families have to go in together to buy you something that's really expensive. Look, I know that thing is, you could buy a little $20 miniature version these days with a whole bunch of games built into it because technology is what it is. But back then, it was hundreds of dollars, and that was
like the equivalent to buying a modern game console, right? I mean, it'd be like trying to buy a Switch or maybe even a PlayStation 5, right?
Whatever the newest thing is.
Just for inflation, it probably costs as much as this stuff now,
And after getting that, I could not justify, having them get me the next one and then buying the upgraded versions of those games and so on and so forth. It just wasn't in me. Plus, I had accumulated such a collection of cartridges and games that I could play forever that I just could not justify doing it. You know what I mean?
Do you still have those cartridges?
No. Okay. And that's a whole different story, a much more personal story.
No, you don't have to get into it. I just wanted a yes or no. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's all right because they'll probably be manufacturing new. We'll get into that story later.
Yeah.
The ramp shape was 5200. The 5200 looked interesting to me because I did not have a 2600 growing up. We had a Magnavox Odyssey, which you may recall was the competitor for the Atari 2600. Remember?
Yes, I do. In fact,
it wasn't as popular, obviously, but in some ways it was technologically better. It had a game called Casey Munchkin on it, which was a basically like a Pac-Man style game. In fact, they got sued over it because I guess Namco thought it was too similar to Pac-Man, but it played much better than the Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man. So there was that. But eventually we got an Atari 800 computer, and that took cartridges. But I didn't realize at the time they were a little more sophisticated than what was on the 2600. In fact, they were probably closer to what the 5200 was able to do with their cartridges. But again, 5200 gets no love. If they were to bring out a clone console of that and maybe give me a decent controller or just make my Genesis reproduction controllers compatible with this thing, I would pick up a 5200 mini console, especially if it had Mountain King on it. Remember Mountain King?
No, I don't. I was just going to ask you.
Mountain King was even available on the 2600. You were this little stick figure, and you had to go down the mountain and collect a bunch of diamonds to get a in order to get this thing that would allow you to get past the flames to get to the crown, and then you had to jump up to the top of the mountain with the crown on your head and watch out for the bats that were going to try to steal it from you. And whatever you do, don't get trapped in the bottom of the mountain because there's a spider down there.
Mm-hmm.
And the spider would wrap you up in cobwebs, and you'd have to wiggle that joystick to get out of it. And if you didn't do it in time, the spider would come along and eat you. It was the creepiest things. And this is an old Atari game. I think Milton Bradley made it, but it was rather neat little game. But when it was out, but there was a Lego version of the Atari 2600 that came out last year. Did you know that?
No, I did not. That's pretty awesome.
A reproduction in Lego you can build. And it's funny because they did the NES, I think, the prior year, but now they did the 2600. So I don't know.
Cool. That's
and let me
cool.
see.
It seems silly, but it's cool.
So I had a poor opinion of video games when I received my NES in March of '98, and of course that changed my mind. I don't want to needle poor Troy here, but I remember hating that Atari controller, the stick in the middle and the button to the left. As I recall, you had one button and you had a stick. Yeah. Did you like that joystick?
I guess I did, because once you get used to it, I had a hard time when I would go over to friends' houses that had like Nintendo and whatever, and had that little thumb joystick or whatever.
The D-pad, yes, that was a big innovation.
It was very challenging to make that. I never did actually fully make the switch over. You also have to remember that and we could go into hours talking about compatibility and stuff like that, but the Atari 2600 controllers were compatible with the Commodore 64
and the Atari computer.
That I also had. Yeah. So the games that I played on the Commodore, I used the exact same joystick, so it just translated for me. And
It's interesting you mentioned that, because there used to be a common plug output for video game machines. The Sega Genesis controller, the classic Sega Genesis controller, had that same output. You can actually use a Sega Genesis controller on the old Atari systems because it was kind of the same. I don't want to say output. It's Nintendo. They're the ones that did everything proprietary, where they were like, no, we're going to make our own end plugs. They've had to stop that recently, but they used to always, each system they would make would have a new end plug on it.
Here's the interesting thing. Did you ever open up one of those joysticks and look inside at how it worked?
I have with the Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 controllers, because I would have friends that would come over and play GoldenEye and other games, and those controllers would get gunked up with sweat, so I had to clean them out. I have opened them up. You had the little rubber feet inside. I don't know if those existed on the Atari.
Well, this is what I was going to say. In the Atari, it was incredibly simple. You opened it up and it was just the box, the joystick, and coming down from the joystick was a like a 4-fingered claw. And what it was doing was, as you would go up, down, left, right, that plastic claw would push down on 4 like button sensors on a pad.
That sounds rather sophisticated.
Well, but simple because really it was just 5 buttons. It was the button and north, south, east, and west. And the combination of, any 2 of them would be your diagonal. You see?
It could do diagonal. Nintendo, you couldn't really do diagonal on the NES because of the square pad. I remember when Kubert came out for it, it gave an alternative control scheme. I mean, you could, but it didn't really work. The Genesis controller had kind of the diagonal ability. Yeah. I
would have thought that it would just be, you turn the thing 90 degrees.
A lot of people did that. A lot of companies did that when they had games where you'd have to do like games like Kubert and things like that. Yeah. That were brought out for the NES. Let's see. Lester said he had a Star Wars game on Atari. Was this?
There were several Star Wars games. Which one are we talking about here?
I don't know. Which one did you have a Star Wars game?
So there was the original Jedi Arena one, which you used the paddles, the same things you would use for a driving game or something like that. And it was a 2-player game. Well, you could play a 2-player, you could play against the computer, and it was 2 lightsaber wielders one at the top of the screen, one at the bottom of the screen, with a remote moving between you. And you could control with your pad both the motion of your lightsaber and the direction of fire of the remote. So you would be using the remote to fire at your opponent, and it forced you to decide between defense and attack. But the sound, as it would ramp up, you'd hear the hum of the remote, and as it got in more and more intense, eventually it would just go ballistic, and it would just start firing randomly, and you were just doing whatever you could to protect yourself. There's no controlling it then. So that was one. There was an Empire Strikes Back one, which was a side scroller, where you were in a snow speeder fighting against AT-ATs.
Interesting.
And I know there were later ones, but I don't think I had any of the later ones after that. And I should point out that they were both, I think they were both Activision games. I'm pretty sure.
Activision games were surprisingly sophisticated in the old Atari. Pitfall, I think Pitfall holds up pretty well.
I used to imagine that it was Indiana Jones.
Yeah, because that's basically it's based on those old adventure movies. Also, right. What did they have? You know, I think it was Jack Black did a commercial for the original Pitfall in the Atari.
Yes, he did.
It's funny seeing a young Jack Black doing the commercial where he's being Pitfall Harry or something. I know they made an Atari Halo game. I didn't realize that. Didn't Sega had this thing with console where you could add ports to upgrade it? Let me tell you something. Nintendo did too, but Nintendo never used their ports. They just had them in there as a reserve. Sega actually used them. There was the Sega CD add-on, where you could add on the Sega CD portion and play games with full motion video and CD quality sound. And it was rather neat. Last year, they brought out the Sega Genesis Mini 2, and it had a selection of a lot of Genesis games, but also they had 12 Sega CD games on it. I wish it had more Sega CD games on this, but it was pretty neat that they made that. And you could get a feel for what it was like to, own a Sega CD. I mean, does that talk about pricey? That's one thing about the difference between American and Japanese gamers. Japanese gamers like to buy add-ons for their consoles. Americans don't, except for the Wii Fit board. For the Wii, that almost had a 1-to-1 ratio with the Wii, which is why I'm surprised Nintendo didn't make more games that utilized it, because it was practically 1-to-1. So why didn't they bring out more games that use the Wii Fit board? But I don't get it. Welcome, Leela Rose. We're talking about old game consoles, but the Atari. I had for the Atari 800 computer. I had a Star Trek game. Do you remember the Star Trek game? Wasn't it you're in the Enterprise and you're shooting Klingon ships? I think that's what the plot of it was.
Oh, and it had a very similar kind of game feel to like Asteroids. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah. That's not how you do a Star Trek game.
Right.
Star Trek, I mean, there are battle sequences in Star Trek movies, but it's really about maybe tactics you could do. But it's funny because I actually, for the NES, I had the Star Trek 25th anniversary game, which was done like a point-click RPG. I think they had one of those for the PC as well, and where you could play as Kirk Spock. It was based on like the original 60s television series.
The first one that I remember was on the Commodore 64. I played it on the 128. It was called the Kobayashi Alternative.
Oh, that's
interesting. It was a kind of a text game, but it was a little bit of a graphic interface. So it was like you were looking at screens and whatnot, but all of your interactions were like text-based and descriptive and whatnot. And you had this small mini map, and it really required you to use the book that came with the thing, things for like star dates and plotting courses and stuff like that. It was interesting, a little tedious. It was a little bit cerebral, but yeah, that was my first encounter with Star Trek gaming.
Okay, cool. I think I had Miss Pac-Man, Frogger, Pole Position, Q*bert, Space Invaders, and Super Breakout. I think that was it. Those are some good titles. I think Pole Position, was that a Namco game, the people that made Pac-Man, like the racing game? I think
It was a racing game. I just don't. Oh, wait a minute. Pole Position. I think was that Pole Position on the 2600. I got to see what it looked like. I think I had that, to be honest with you. No, I had a different one. I had Dragster. I had Dragster, which was a side-scrolling racer. But Pole Position was let's see. Does it say anything about it?
If I did an old school story game, I do it similar to Shadowgate on the NS. Actually, it was similar to something more along the lines of, I think, like a King's Quest. That, as I remember it. But I'm sure you can still play. You can still buy the cartridge if you have an NES, or if not, there are other ways you can figure out a way to play this game.
And Netter just dropped a link for you if you want to play some of these things that we're talking about online.
I want to see if the Star Wars games are on there.
Doesn't even, it might very well be. I don't know. You don't even have to download these games. They're literally
play them on a browser. People do that a lot with the old games. I remember I was able to try out the Atari Ms. Pac-Man just through a browser. That shows how much technology has come along, that these can just play it on a simple browser.
What's very interesting is I did see somebody did a video talking about how the Atari 2600 really pushed the envelope with, well, specifically with Ms. Pac-Man. The original Pac-Man game was kind of shit, to be honest with you. And they explain in this video why it was.
It was some poor programmer working all by himself.
By himself with a ridiculous deadline.
And you have to understand that back in those days, it wasn't.
You didn't have a lot of bits to work with.
Well, not only that, but it wasn't Namco making their own version of Ms. Pac-Man. The idea of having licensed companies making use of the system, that didn't exist. Atari would buy the rights to make the Ms. Pac-Man version for the Atari.
And then they'd have some programmer look at the game and do his best. And with that first Pac-Man game, he was working mostly from memory. It's not like he had access to a Pac-Man game where he could draw out the whole map accurately the way it was, figure out how it all worked. Hell, best case scenarios, you would have access to the programming. So you knew how each of the four ghosts moved and why and what their parameters were. He didn't have any of that. He was just making it up as he went along, you know. But,
that's too bad, because I'm not blaming him. It's funny, there was a similar story to one of the Doom home console ports, where it was this poor woman was working on the programming all by herself, and it was another situation where we're not really blaming her. I think she was doing everything she could, but just because of the way it was structured. But it was I
think sometimes you're almost going, wow, you know, this is better than it had any business being, now that I know
what happened,
the restrictions she had under.
It's weird how different ages, they're always the holy grails. Like, for a while it was Pac-Man. Can we get Pac-Man to work on a home console, or Space Invaders? Later on, when I owned home game consoles, everybody wanted Doom, and Doom, of course, was a PC game, and it could run well on a PC, but people wanted that game on consoles, and it was a while before they could get a version that just ran competently, because it was just that sophisticated back in the day. But Pole Position was the very first video game I ever played. I don't even remember what the first game I played was. The first game I ever got, my father bought it for me. It was Dig Dug for the Atari 800 computer. I do remember that. So Dig Dug.
You know, CK makes a great point. It pulls out a fuzzy memory for me. He says, I remember being very young and very confused. I couldn't wrap my head around the concept that I could affect what was on TV. And I am a couple of years older than he is, and I remember not having confusion over that, but thinking it was pretty darn cool, you know, that it was, it made TV interactive, you know.
Basically,
you know,
it was unlike anything else. And like I said, I'd always played games growing up as a kid, but I didn't really get into them until the NES, even though I had access to. I realize now I was kind of blessed that I had access to a lot of games. That of course, eventually the Atari 800 computer went out of style, and we got IBM PC compatibles that had horrible graphics cards. They couldn't play the game properly. And I think it's around that time that we gave up and my parents got us an NES because I don't think they could afford to get us the real fancy computers, but at least the consoles had finally gotten better. So yeah. But I remember, I think I've told the story about seeing my cousin Andrew's Amiga after we got the NES and being floored. But what I saw the Amiga could do, I hadn't seen graphics like that before. But
right.
Many of those 20th games were poor emulations of the arcade counterparts. Now, an arcade near me has a 3D tabletop Bond game. Interesting.
Wow.
I was born in '76, so yeah, I'm a year younger than you, so yeah. But I remember Dragon's Lair in the arcade. I think
I loved and hated that game.
That talk about being amazed by a game in the arcade. That game was like
that had such awesome Don Bluth.
It was an interactive Disney movie.
Well, basically, it was a Don Bluth. So you saw it as Disney, but it wasn't Disney. You're absolutely right.
With a sexier princess in it. But
we don't want sexier. Yeah, absolutely. The problem with it was it responded like a beast. There was a 3-second lag between moving the joystick and it responding to you. It was terrible. It was so frustrating. I got to be honest with you. That's the kind of game that would really port well. I think they could very easily do a modern version of that with hair trigger responses. That would be way more fun.
Yeah, they've tried on occasion doing newer versions of Dragon's Lair. I think I got one on the GameCube, which I never got around to playing because I bought it after the fact. But they did like a Dragon's Lair 3D where they were using the 3D graphics we had now with cell shading, basically just trying to recreate the game as like a modern action platformer. I don't think it quite came together, but it was interesting because they also did original animation sequences for it too that weren't in the arcade game. So I was kind of curious about it. But
see, I think, because all of that was stored on Laserdisc, I think you could very easily port the raw animation out of it and come up with something much simpler. I really do.
Well, who knows? Maybe they'll do something like that in the future. But anyway, we'll have some more Atari news later. But do you have any last words on your Atari 2600? Do you miss it, or have you?
I do.
On?
I do.
Okay.
I kind of really do. Yeah.
Well, you may.
I'll be honest with you. If I had one right now, I'm not even sure I'd know how to plug it up to these new modern TVs that don't have the little 2-prongy thing in the back.
Oh no.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
you have no idea what hookups were like back in the day.
I know, because it would be right where your what do you call it? The aerial, the antenna.
You had to unscrew it and put the two things that look like tuning forks, right?
Yes,
like miniature tuning forks, and screw them in. This was prior to coaxial.
Yep.
I know you think coaxial was a joke. Like I remember when I was younger, coaxial, when you had an NES and you wanted to hook it up with the AV jacks, not with the coaxial input. The Atari didn't even have coaxial. It was like we actually had a coaxial adapter for a television where the screws went. There was a coaxial adapter.
Yeah.
And that was for a lot of the black and white TVs were like that. In fact, interesting to note, I think the old Atari console had a black and white mode, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Yes. And not only that, but even the original NES, nobody understood this, but you could play it on black and white TV. The colors were constructed in such a way where they would show up fine on a black and white TV. I didn't know that at the time because I never played the NES in black and white, but apparently
that's actually very clever. And I'm sure it's the same mentality as people that were making black and white TV shows back then.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the set of the Addams Family, you'd be shocked at how colorful and actually weird looking it looks.
Because it was made to look on. It was kind of like when they were doing the. I watched that movie about George Reeves, and they were explaining how I think his Superman costume was colored in such a way that it would show up well in black and white.
It was gray and brown, rather than blue and red. Yes, I've seen the original costume.
Yeah,
it's in the Superman Museum in Metropolis, Illinois. So yeah, I've seen it.
But it's interesting that these old consoles were compatible with black and white TVs, and I think there's a reason why. If you're a kid and you were lucky, you might get a hand-me-down TV. Your parents weren't going to buy you a new TV, and that's if you're lucky. And sometimes that would be a black and white TV. But heck, a black and white TV is better than no TV, right? Especially when you get to have it as your own TV.
That's true.
So then you can hook up your Atari console to it and set it to black and white. So yeah, interesting. Yep. See, in some ways, we did a lot with less.
Well, it's the same concept that I talk about with, big budget Hollywood films. It's like, look, sometimes the restrictions create, being necessity being the mother of invention, right? You got restrictions, you come up with creative ideas and, end up surpassing people's expectations.
And the tuning forks would break off and you'd strip the wires and wrap each wire around the little...
Yes, he's right. I did that.
I think we might have done that too. My dad was kind of he would figure these things out. It was just, oh man.
And I'll be honest with you too. If you had you'd have to use something like a screwdriver or some metal implement to turn those screws. You connect one to the other, you get a little bit of a jolt. I mean, a little bit of a jolt, enough for your fingers to just kind of buzz a little bit. And you'd be like, ooh. And then you call your friend over. Hey, check this out. Do this,
That would be cool.
Grandma would come in, go, oh, you gotta electrocute yourself. Ah!
Oh, that'd be funny. All right. In remembrance. Oh, yikes. We have Bob Barker, Mikey Sutton, Arleen Sorkin. I'm sorry. We just jumped off into this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, we got no good transition really. But what
that was my fault. I should have said.
No, what good transition could there possibly be? Bob Barker. Does anyone in the chat remember him from? I'm not even going to ask about whether you remember him from Truth or Consequence. Just do you remember him from The Price is Right?
I think vaguely. Is that where you'd have to guess the price of the item?
There was a number of different games. There was the Plinko. There was guess the price of the item. In fact, that was his whole shtick for the price guessing game was get as close as possible without going over. Sadly, Bob Barker got as close to 100 as possible without going over.
Okay.
He started as a funny guy, so I think that's appropriate.
I do. Okay, yes, Netta remembers. But yeah, in fact, that kind of reminds me. I think they riffed on that on UHF, like "What's Behind the Box," right? Wasn't that sort of Price is Right?
Exactly.
And then she says, "Oh, you want to go for the box?" In fact, was that a thing on Price is Right? You could keep what you have or choose to go for something bigger. Was that a thing on Price is Right?
Yeah. Like I said, there was a whole bunch of different games. Then there was the one with the dude that would go up the mountain, the yodeler. Let's make a deal. Oh, was that Let's Make a Deal? I'm sorry, that's a different one. But it was definitely a related type.
Now I'm feeling like this is the beginnings. This should be a beginning sequence, and if they ever redo the Twilight Zone movie, people talking about old game shows, and then
Yeah, exactly.
But Jesse, The Price is Right and Happy Gilmore. I remember him in Happy Gilmore.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, if you don't know him from anywhere else, that would be where you'd know him from. Fair enough. Good.
Where Adam Sandler plays the ex-hockey player who's stuck being a golfer.
I did not even think of that reference. That's brilliant.
And he goes, "The price is wrong, Bob," and he punches him, and then Bob Barker gets right back up and decks him, and he says, "The price is wrong, bitch." That's what he says to him. The price is right, bitch. That's what he says to him, I think, in response. You want to post the first article, though? I guess I won't read too much about it, but
I did, but we'll do it again. There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did.
No, that's okay.
I wasn't paying attention.
No, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
Tonight.
That's what I'm here for.
Talked about video games.
Trying to earn my keep
as a kid, and if you were ever lucky enough where someone would just buy you a video game, like for a birthday present, you could go pick one out. I'm like,
yeah,
it's like being a kid in the candy store. What do you pick? And you better pick the right game.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can get a stinker too.
Because if you ended up going, oh, I like E.T., let me try that game.
Think about it, E.T. What could go wrong, right?
Right?
Yes. The movie was great. If the game's just half as good as the movie, right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't half as good.
Okay.
It was way less than half a half.
Okay, but anyway, for over 30 years, Bob Barker was known and loved as the host of the hit game show The Price is Right. He famously ended each episode telling viewers to spay or neuter their pets. Barker spent decades giving his time and money to better lives of creatures big and small. Here are several organizations you can donate on Barker's legacy. Animal Welfare Organization. Okay, Barker was Barker was also part of PETA.
Yep.
Which I've had issues with them sometimes, but I have to admit they know how to advertise with some of the ladies in that picture.
Yeah,
but
I think a lot of them are a little bit they kind of work against what they're really going for, but whatever.
Probably, yeah. Awards and achievements. While Barker was recognized for his on-screen work with 19 Daytime, he's also earned praise for his activism. Yeah, Los Angeles Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and college donations in his younger years. Barker attended Drury University, then known as Drury College, and his basketball scholarship. He has since given millions of dollars to his alma mater, funding a scholarship and internship fund, and setting up the university's animal studies programs. Okay, so good for him. But we will miss him. But like I said, he lived a good life. It sounds like, right?
I think so. I mean, look, I made a little joke about not getting to 100, but damn it, getting a 99 is just fine. Most of us won't. I'd say it's pretty good.
Let's see here. Continuum Chronicles. Worst game ever picked out was Section Z on NES. I heard. I don't know if that's as bad as you were. I don't know. I think I'm trying to think. There was some guy that does retrospectives. I think that maybe that's not as bad as I don't know. Like I think some people like that game, but maybe you didn't. I remember getting Paperboy as my first one I could pick, and I kind of regretted that later. You know what Paperboy is?
Oh yeah, it's a funny game, but the controls are just miserable.
Yeah, and to be fair, the NES version was probably one of the best home ports too, so I can't even pick on.
Actually, as I recall, one of my favorite what is that YouTuber? Angry
Video Game Nerd. Yes,
Angry Video Game Nerd does a video about that. It's really funny.
He did a great thing where he's just trying to. You can't smash a window with a paper, and he's throwing papers at a window, and he keeps throwing out this window. Then it breaks, and he looks at the camera and does, like, okay, so you can do. So,
kind of makes you wonder if he hadn't planned it and it actually.
No, I don't think so. I think that was by accident. I think he was just doing that as a thing, and then it broke. But you got to take that paper slip to the check stand, and you get that was the big thing with I don't know if that was a thing they would do at Toys R Us.
I was gonna say Toys R Us was
Toys R Us did that up until the end. They would not ever have games on the shelf. You take the slip and you'd pay for it, and then you'd go and you'd get the lady in the back would go get the game for you. Well, and sometimes you'd get a freebie. Like I got a free T-shirt with Donkey Kong Country when I purchased that. That was kind of neat.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great way to do promotions. I hadn't thought about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and
but watch for that to be happening a whole lot more with a whole lot of other things at retail shops going forward in this post defund police era.
Give me free stuff. I got a Pikmin water bottle with my order of Pikmin 4 for the Switch.
Wow.
And I've been using it, and it's a pretty good water bottle for something that came for free. And I've been, I'm drinking from it now, actually. But we're got off track here though because someone had to talk about Nintendo games.
Keep going back to the good old days. We don't want to go any further. Let's keep going back to the good old days. I was
tempted to do good old days on Harley Quinn. Let's talk about Arleen Sorkin. Wow.
Well, why don't we talk about Mikey Sutton first? Because I expect we might spend a little more time on Arleen.
Okay, well, let me go down here. I just have the tweet.
That's fine. I'm going to drop this. This is and the reason I chose this tweet out of many others, it is from his nephew, who expresses thanks from the family regarding this. So who is Mikey Sutton? Mikey Sutton is a 2-time winner of the Washington Press Association Awards and a professional journalist since 1987. Sutton made his print debut in the legendary GMA Record Guide in 1987 and the Philippines Movie Flash magazine. His U.S. debut arrived in Amazing Heroes in 1990, receiving comics from rising stars such as Neil Gaiman and Grant Morrison. He quickly escalated in the writing field, eventually working for magazines such as Cinema Fantastique, Tower Records Pulse, and Fantasia, for whom he had the first review of Terminator 2 Judgment Day in the UK. As the internet exploded, Sutton was hired by the All Music Guide in 2001 and wrote more than 500 articles for them in a 5-year span. Sutton's reviews have been published in 2 books, the All Music Guide to Rock, Volume 5 in 2002, and Scouse Pop in 2018. Half Filipino, Sutton has stayed close to his roots. In 2002, Sutton became the first A&R rep to sign a Manila-based rock band, the Pinup Girls, to a U.S. record label, and then co-releasing their second full-length album, All Seats Are Taken, with Sony Music. 3 years later, he resurrected his beloved Philippine-based new wave radio station, WXB 102, as an online channel with the original DJs broadcasting live. Sutton is generally considered among the most well-known movie scoopers. His accurate reports have included both Sony Marvel Studios deals from Spider-Man, the second of which shot him to global prominence, Black Panther and Spider-Man in Civil War, Benedict Cumberbatch and Brie Larson in MCU, the Fox Disney deal, and the Snyder Cut on HBO Max. Sutton has been written about in Rolling Stones, NME, the Daily Mail, Yahoo News, and CBR. His leaks have been regularly featured on various YouTube channels with millions of subscribers, most of which you all probably listen to. Midnight's Edge, for example. That
Midnight's Edge, yes.
That was Mikey Sutton. Gone way too soon. Very, very sad.
Yeah.
But that's why we're mentioning him here, because right now the mainstream media isn't even talking about it.
No, and that's too bad. Yeah, I mean, I'll read the tweet too if you'd like.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm Mikey Sutton's nephew. My family and I have been reading the tributes to him on social media and hashtags. What? We're amazed by the number of people who knew him. On behalf of the Sutton family, thank you. Maraming Salamat Po. Okay, if I said that correctly.
I mean,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and you know, maybe it's best that it's coming out through Twitter, posts and YouTube channels talking about it. I think the guys on Pop Culture Minefield were talking all about it too. I mean, it's like this has become the news for this kind of a community. We can't rely on the mainstream media. We rely on the cutting edge was people like Mikey Sutton and people in that community. And, I feel like we're the affiliates, right? We're picking up things from them being the new version of the Associated Press and us getting it out to you guys,
Yeah.
So.
Unfortunately, yeah, I guess that's what our role is becoming, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, Mikey Sutton.
Maria, okay. T and Tully, welcome. Thanks for
stopping
to
the chat.
You are wonderful.
Subscribe to her if you guys.
We are currently talking about sad things, but sad things with bittersweet memories. Before we get into all the other tragic news we have to bring to you.
All right.
Geez.
Wanted to say, hey, welcome.
I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
What does she say though? She has something to say. That was The Price is Right. It was called Cliffhanger's Game with the Yodeler. Oh,
that's what it was. It was. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. So now we have another death to talk about.
This one strikes you as such a surprise. It's like so many others where you're like, what? 67 years old. Yeah. That's nothing these days, guys. 67. beautiful woman.
Yes.
She has been for her entire
Yeah.
celebrity career, but
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to be curious. Were you a Days of Our Lives watcher?
I knew vaguely of her. My mother wasn't a regular Days of Our Lives fan, but she watched occasional episodes, so I knew of her character. And let's face it, I saw the rather famous, and you can find it. It's out on YouTube.
Yeah.
Her dressed in that Harley Quinn costume, doing that little bit that she did from Days of Our Lives that a lot, everyone says inspired the existence of that character in Batman the Animated Series. Therefore, she was the logical choice to do the voice of Harley Quinn, which was originally intended to be a one-off. She was only meant to be in one episode, and the character was probably going to be killed off by the end, but was so popular. Not only did she become a regular feature in the animated show, but she made her jump into the comics, and she is a regular mainline DC character now.
Yeah. If you want to go ahead and post the
I'm sorry, I got all involved talking about her. I didn't drop the link to the article.
Yeah, but
I just chose the one from the Hollywood. Oops. I'm going to have to do this in two parts. Hold on a second.
Do it in two parts. But Arleen Sorkin. I'll read a little bit from this. Arleen Sorkin, voice of original of Harley Quinn in Days of Our Lives, dies of 67. And this, I have my own things to talk about her too. Arleen Sorkin, who portrayed Calliope Jones. Saying that right? Calliope Jones on the NBC soap opera Days of Our Lives, and served as the original voice of the DC Comics character Harley Quinn, had died. She was 67. Sorkin died Thursday. A source told the Hollywood Reporter health issues kept her from acting in recent years. Yeah, I noticed how she had sort of retired from the character of Harley Quinn. Yeah. And that explains why. But DC boss James Gunn wrote on Instagram Saturday, "Rest in peace, Arleen Sorkin, the incredibly talented original voice of Harley Quinn, who helped to create the character so many of us love. Love to her family and friends." Mark Hamill, who often recorded his lines as the Joker opposite Sorkin, also remembered her in a tribute writing, "Devastated to learn we've lost the brilliant Arleen Sorkin. Not just a wonderful talent, but a truly wonderful person. I'm grateful not only to have worked with her, but to have been her friend, sending my heartfelt condolences to her family and loved ones." Harley Quinn was intended to be a one-episode character when she debuted on Batman the Animated Series in the 1992 episode Joker's Favor. That was the 7th episode to air, I remember. Let me explain. First episode to air was on Saturday morning, which was was part 1 of The Cat and the Claw. For whatever reason, they decided to do a two-parter on 2 Saturdays in a row. Then Sunday night, we got the Man-Bat episode. And then it was Monday. I remember we got the first episode of Mr. Freeze, and then that Friday was the first Joker episode, which was Joker's Favor. Anyway, go ahead. I'm just sorry, I'm rambling. I remember these things from when I was in high school. Okay, but no, Paul Dini, Harley Quinn co-creator and Batman writer, was a college friend of Sorkin's and said he was inspired to cast her after being homesick one day and catching her on an episode of Days of Our Lives in which she played a Harlequin in a dream sequence. "I thought about a character kind of like her persona at the time, which was the snappy, wisecracking blonde," Dini told THR in 2016. The character proved to be a hit, and Sorkin returned for 8 more episodes and reprised the role for video games, animated movies, and animated series over the years, including Gotham Girls, Justice League, the Batman, Superman movie, World's Finest, and more. "I would sing in the car and on the way to work, Adelaide's Lament from Guys and Dolls, and when I got there, I was ready," Sorkin told THR in 2016. Adelaide from Guys and Dolls is someone I always wanted to play, so it was very easy for me to find Harley's voice, but I made her even more extreme. So I guess that's what inspired her.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, interesting.
She's told this story many times in conventions and whatnot.
So. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Harley Quinn has grown to become more nationally known, with Margot Robbie portraying her on the big screen. Tara Strong, who went on to voice Harley Quinn in other iterations, called Sorkin the inspiration and the heart and soul of the psychotic character.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think Tara Strong is a worthy successor. I really do.
But it's really sad. I remember, I believe that Harley Quinn, in some ways, she was a. If you watch a lot of the 1960s Batman episodes, you notice the villains always would sometimes have a female henchman with
Yep.
the group, right?
Well, and it
Whatever.
goes back
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
old
yeah,
what do you call it? Gangster films with the mall, right?
yeah. Exactly. So with the mall,
That's
explain
what
the term mall to me. I'm
it's a
curious.
slang term for the female, sidekick to the bad guy.
It's interesting you mentioned that because I might be picking up an old dime novel from the 50s recently because I was inspired to get a couple of posters that were based on these old this old art they would have for these what do you call it, these I guess scandalous novels of the 1950s, right? And one of them had the word mall in it, and I didn't know what the word mall meant. I thought, is that a mob? Like, I think it was called the mall and the mob or something. And I'm looking at this woman in like this pink sweater, but with her
Yeah.
legs kind of crossed, and she's
Yep.
smoking a cigarette. And
That's
okay,
right.
and
Yeah.
and some guys playing cards behind her, which I don't know if they're gangsters or whatnot. That makes sense now. Okay.
Auditor Dread says Arleen Sorkin will be missed. Ha! And here you thought I was just another bubble-headed blonde bimbo. Well, joke's on you. I'm not even a real blonde.
Oh, that's funny. I think that was from the episode Mad Love. Yeah, I didn't realize on the original Batman animated series, I guess she was only in 8 episodes. It felt like she was in more. I
Because
kept
that's what you focused on, right? Because she was such a powerful character.
Yeah, she was of course in more when they did the second Batman animated series, and all those are included on that Blu-ray set you got. Of course, I think it was also important to have episodes where the Joker didn't have Harley Quinn. It was also good to see him on his own too. But she was always a delight. She was in the episode The Laughing Fish, and she had to come out and do the commercials for the Joker fish, because that was based on a comic book, The Laughing Fish, right? And she's on TV and she goes, "Here, try some." And she says, "Mr. J, I don't really like fish." And he shoves some of the Joker fish into her mouth and she goes, "Yummy, yum, yum." It's just a really bad
And she did
commercial.
other voice acting too. I believe she
Sure.
was in the Tiny Toons Adventures, I think.
That makes sense because that was Paul Dini did a lot of the writing for Tiny Toons as
There
well.
you go.
In fact, that was sort of the start of the Warner Brothers Renaissance in animation was Tiny Toons, and then it went with Batman the Animated Series, and they did Animaniacs. Then after that, they did new Superman and Batman cartoons, and it was a golden time. I don't know what's going on over there now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. They do straight for video stuff, which are hit and miss. They used to do series though, and they were well done animated series.
I do also have to point out that I also did not make the connection it was her, but I do definitely remember from 1990 to 1992, she was the co-host of America's Funniest People.
Really?
Yep. I remember her.
Oh, that's interesting. And that was probably right before Batman the Animated Series.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Not even real blonde. Yeah, that was yes. Actually, Batman made a point with the Joker that Harley Quinn came a lot closer to killing me than you ever did. That's what he made a point to get the Joker angry.
Another thing, she's got a lot of awards and nominations. She was nominated for a Spike Video Game Award for Best Voice for Batman Arkham Asylum. She was nominated for the Daytime Emmy Awards in 88 and 89, Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Drama Series. Yeah. But in 85, 86, and 88, she won from Soap Opera Digest Awards, Outstanding Actress in Supporting Role in a Daytime Serial, Outstanding New Actress in a Daytime Serial, Outstanding Comic Relief Role in a Daytime Serial, Outstanding Comic Performance as by an Actress for a daytime role. 2011 Peabody Awards, she shared it with Jessica Hernandez, and 2011 International Documentary Associate Video Source Award shared with Dwayne Bauman, Johnny O'Hara, Mark Sigel, and Glenn Aveni. But yeah, award winner, and just come on, beloved by the fans.
Yeah, definitely a class act. Batman the Animated Series just had a brilliant voice acting cast surrounding it.
That actually was one of my favorite lines of hers, Auditor Dread.
By
come
now, he
on, Puddin',
probably
don't you want to rev up your Harley?
rev up your Harley. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, at least the original line was probably, "Don't you want to ride your Harley?"
It's just funny. You know what it is? That probably was the original line. I used to have a book called Batman Animated, and there are
Uh-huh.
all these lines in there that they had to cut out.
You you
There's a
I'm
wonderful.
surprised by the things that got through.
They tried. They snuck as much in there as they could. I don't know if the episode with where her and Poison Ivy were hanging out, if the Joker comes in, I don't think they could put this line in, but they wanted to put the line in. What have you busy little beavers been up to? He wanted to say
Oh my god.
it's so bad. But I remember though, yeah, just I forget. Yeah, in the book Batman, the Art of Batman, the animated series, though, they have a whole thing in there where all the lines, it was like a 2-page spread of all the lines they had to cut out. One of the lines was, "I'll see you in hell." I know what episode that had to be from. It was from the episode where Batman, I think he was trying to capture the Mad Hatter and gets knocked out, and then he wakes up, and it turns out, no, you're Bruce Lane. This whole Batman thing, this is some delusion you've created for yourself. You're and Martha and Thomas Wayne were still alive.
Yeah.
And wait a minute, and you're running, and he's like, and you're, and Alfred says you're in charge of he was in charge of Wayne Enterprises.
Yeah.
He wasn't Batman, and he was engaged to Selena Kyle, who was a socialite. She wasn't Catwoman, and basically his life was perfect. And the funny thing about this universe was that he was waking up into, there was also a Batman out there to stop criminals and save the day. And I realized why that existed, because even if Bruce Wayne woke up in a world where his tragedy hadn't happened, and he, life was good, he still probably would have felt the need to still be Batman.
Interesting.
You understand? So in this universe, there was still a Batman fighting crime and doing what he would do. And then it turns out he runs into the Mad Hatter on this thing, and because he realizes he's in a dream when he realizes he can't read complex things, or numbers are all screwed up, and he realizes he's in a dream. And the Mad Hatter's there, and he's saying, "Oh, this could be the real world." And I forget what happens. He realizes this is a trick of the Mad Hatter. He's in some kind of machine, and he's going to jump off. He says, "You don't know if you'll survive that fall. You may die in the real world." And then Batman turns to him and says, "Then I'll see you in your nightmares." And I know what he wanted to say was, "I'll see you in hell."
Yeah,
of course,
exactly,
that's what he meant to say. Brilliant animated series. Arleen Sorkin's brilliant.
And I do love the fact that something else that I remember so keenly about Arleen Sorkin, she had an incredible smile, and I think it's partly because of her bubbly personality. It came through in the characters that she played, came through in the humor, that was integral to all of her roles, really. But I love this thing. It's not the one you have up right now. CK says, when Batman the Animated Series met Superman, Joker's on a plane that explodes. She says, "Puddin'." Batman says, "By now he probably is."
Yes, I remember that. Of course, the Joker comes back. He always does. But yeah,
it's funny because, as I recall, in the role-playing game, he had a superpower, kind of a superpower called dumb luck. So you could use it as a game master. Just everything just conspires that he doesn't die. He ends up surviving, whatever.
Here's how they would do it on Batman the Animated Series. It would either be something like he dies in an explosion, or it looks like he drowns, or something happens where there's always a plausible thing that maybe he survived it. Do you understand?
Yeah, exactly.
There's
you
also,
never see the body,
or he just gets arrested and sent back.
Which is very much the way a lot of things happened in Batman 66. Too,
sure. And obviously that was a big influence on Batman the Animated Series, as a lot of things were. But don't look at me. I hated Harley Quinn. I think you hated what Harley Quinn turned into. But maybe I'm wrong there.
Yeah, it could be.
I think they did play up the relationship thing with the Joker too much, where it was like an abusive relationship. That kind of came later.
Yeah.
Whereas it started out, she's just a henchman. She also, in the original episodes, she was not some trained psychologist. That came later, where they wrote that backstory.
You're right.
She said, I flunked out of beauty school. She said that. She was like, a typical mall. But I didn't mind what they did later though with her. And like I said, I think right now though people have gotten sick of Harley just because I think that character has been mistreated in recent years.
She really has. As much as I think Barbie looks like her, and physically plays the role just fine.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have the voice. She doesn't have the character down. I don't think she cares. So yeah, it's really hard to see any of the actual Harley in that character.
You're allowed not to like her, Matanui. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other characters I haven't liked over the years in series. Wesley Crusher, he became more tolerable as the show went on, but that first season I hated him. Remember?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the other thing is, even if you don't like Harley, you gotta like her more than Punchline. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, well, we'll do that some other time. Maybe they'll bring her into a movie someday.
Oh, God.
Of course, not maybe in the Matt Reeves Batman series, you'll Punchline in one of them. You never know. I could see them doing that. All right, Mandalorian to make broadcast television debut.
Yeah, I got to tell you, this isn't the only thing that they've done it with. They've done it with some of their Marvel, with the Ms. Marvel, and I don't remember what else they released on TV. This is what's the Star Trek guys over at Universal are doing the same thing, or not Universal, Paramount are doing the same thing, taking it from behind the paywall and putting it out for the masses to see, because they got to get people interested. And I feel this is the hens coming home to roost. We said this, back then. You're putting your stuff behind paywalls. Don't be surprised when people lose interest, and all you have is a small segment of your fan base.
So, let's stay positive, shall we?
Okay.
Not really. Okay, in celebration of Disney Plus and Lucasfilm's highly anticipated return to Mandalore, the Walt Disney Company will offer viewers the opportunity to experience the episode that started it all when the series premiere of Star Wars The Mandalorian makes its broadcast debut simultaneously on ABC, Freeform, and FX. The three networks will air Chapter 1 The Mandalorian February 24th. So, wait a minute. This is an older article, right?
Oh, is it? How old is that?
Well, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. I'm sorry. February 24th, when? Hold on. When is this taking place? Are they saying this is happening next year? Well, wait a minute. I'm just curious, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. This is an older article. This is from February of 2023. So this was earlier this year.
We didn't cover this, did we?
No, we did not.
Because nobody cared, and it did not make any cultural thing.
Well, it's very interesting because it still plays into our next article. So let's quickly just sum this up.
Yes.
So I guess it was earlier this year they played this episode of The Mandalorian, trying to get
one episode. I remember they were showing Star Trek Discovery on CBS. That was the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's basically the same thing. It's please come, if you like this, you got to come spend the money on our streaming service. And as we know now, maybe that's why it's best that we're actually covering this almost 6 months out, because since then they've lost so many subscribers. This has not worked for them. It simply hasn't.
No.
So this is, this was the first step of we're struggling. We need to do something. And that's why when the article says, in celebration of, translated as out of desperation for, so, let's just go to the next one because it ties directly in. They didn't get the viewership they wanted to by putting an episode out on free TV. So now we get The Mandalorian, at least seasons 1 and 2, WandaVision, and Loki to release on Blu-ray and 4K UHD. So for all that we've been talking about, and you've heard me going on and on and on about this like a broken record, you're leaving money on the table. You've got it hidden behind a paywall. If you release it on physical media, people will buy it. They want to keep control. They don't want to let you get that physical media. Don't accept it. hold out for that physical media if you actually want to see the thing, you know? So take it.
So The Mandalorian, WandaVision, and Loki to release on Blu-ray and 4K. I'm hearing crickets. Okay. I thought I'd hear clapping.
I mean, I'm glad that it's happening. A lot of people are saying, yeah, what about the DVD release? The cheap, bargain basement, just get the episodes out,
I hate to say this. I've been noticing a lot of stuff is not getting released on DVD anymore. Like I think a lot of those, like a lot of the Warner Brothers direct-to-video, like superhero movies, I think they're just getting 4K and Blu-ray. I don't think they're even bothering with DVD on those anymore.
That's fine, but there's also the difference between a 4K and Blu-ray and a steel box. Anyway, and that's what these are.
Let's read. Yeah. If you purchase an independently reviewed product or service through a link on our website, Variety may receive an affiliate commission. That has nothing to do with the article. I don't know why I read that. The Mandalorian, the Mandalorian, WandaVision, and Loki will arrive on Blu-ray and 4K Ultra HD later this year, marking the first Disney Plus original series to get physical release. The first season of Loki will become available on September 26th, WandaVision on November 28th, and the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian on December 12th. The physical releases will come with both a collector's edition 4K Ultra HD and Blu-ray disc encased in a luxe steelbook packaging with collectible concept art cards and brand new art designed by artist Attila Szarka.
Got me.
Szarka. I tried.
Suzuki.
Just stop. Okay. Oh, we're going to get canceled. Look at you.
I don't care.
Okay. The physical editions will also feature never before seen special features. Loki is the only title whose special features have been announced, which includes designing the TVA with production designer Kazra Farahani and Tom Hiddleston, and contains a look at season 2. The Minutes TVA orientation video, deleted scenes, a gag reel, and the assembled documentary. Loki, which was third Marvel Studios Disney Plus series after WandaVision, and The Falcon and Winter Soldier, stars Hiddleston as the God of Mischief, who died at the beginning of the Avengers Infinity War. The series was the first to introduce the MCU's multiverse and also became the first Disney Plus series to get renewed for a second season. Although it has not received a second season, WandaVision, the MCU's first TV series, is one of the most popular Marvel offshoots. In her review, Variety TV critic Caroline Framke wrote that the show was proved to be a deliciously strange, surprisingly poignant reflection on grief, family, and community. All 4 titles will be available to pre-order on August 28th. Didn't they kill off Wanda in that last Doctor Strange movie?
Hell if I know. I didn't see it.
I didn't see it either. Okay.
What difference does it make? There's the multiverse. They just pluck her out of another one if they want to, or whatever. Time travel, wibbly wobbly, whatever.
Remember when Lionel Luthor came back on Smallville because it was the alternate universe Lionel Luthor? Because, of course, the Lionel Luthor of the regular Smallville universe was thrown off of the 30-story window by Lex Jr. That was a wonderful episode. That was when Lex Luthor finally became evil on that show.
Remember when stories actually had stakes and people actually, were worried that someone might die? Now you could get, skewered through the stomach with a lightsaber and they'll just, walk it off.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. I'm sorry. The whole idea with the lightsaber was once you got that fatal wound, you were done.
Yeah.
There's no recovery.
I'm starting to realize more and more that, if you're a woman in the Star Wars universe, you will survive the wounds that would kill a male. You could be skewered through the stomach and survive. You could be gutted and get cybernetic implants. That's how it works. Whereas, every other male character is just dead.
A large portion of a mountain does fall on Wanda, but she wanted it to happen. Okay, wonderful.
Good. So did we.
Careful, Disney physical media. They are famous for the Disney Vault scam. What I originally thought might happen with something like The Mandalorian, when the show finally wrapped up, I thought they would just do an entire set of the whole series, which I thought maybe they were waiting on that.
Yeah,
When I
no,
was not as negative
they
on.
intended to never release it, and the
Yes.
fact that they're doing it now it speaks to desperation. And you know what? We will talk much more about this on Friday,
Mhm.
where my guest for last call will be Greg from Fanzine, and I'm trying to bring in another big YouTuber to talk physical media, and not just these, physical media in general, but. What we've been saying for a long time, you're leaving money on the table by not putting out the physical media. Well, when they get desperate, I've told you, withhold your money. Eventually, they will bow to you. It's the way it works.
Yes. Amazon in talks with Disney about ESPN streaming partnership.
Yes, this one I find particularly interesting. I am dropping the article for you. Well, obviously it's for anyone. Anyone can go double check, make sure we're not making stuff up. That's our citations. But for the viewers, I am also dropping a link to Valiant Renegade's commentary on this very topic. It's worthwhile.
Maybe they'll put an Indy 5 Soundtrack City move on these Blu-ray titles. Yeah, probably.
And for you, Aged Boomer, if you want to give a shout out to Valiant Renegade in the description below at
yes.
1 hour 19 minutes 1 hour 19 minutes. Okay.
1 hour 19 minutes. Valiant Renegade. We're doing a shout out to him. Yes. Okay. Amazon in talks with Disney about ESPN streaming. So this is the NASDAQ. Yes, he talked a bit about it.
Yep.
Amazon in early talks of Walt Disney Company about working on the streaming version of ESPN, and it is developing while possibly also taking a minority stake in the sports network. The information report on Thursday citing people familiar with the matter. Disney and ESPN are still in the midst of determining an appropriate price for this new service. The report said Amazon.com, Walt Disney, and ESPN did not immediately respond to Reuters' request for comment. In July, Disney CEO Robert Iger told CNBC that his company wants to keep ESPN and look for strategic partners to form a joint venture and buy a stake in the sports network to help it and take it directly to consumers. And you would watch the Valiant Renegade commentary, correct?
Yes.
And what was his big take? I think I caught a bit of it, but I'm trying to remember now. Okay.
Yeah, he was just pointing out that this does kind of fall under the looks like they're starting to sell off some of their assets and they're trying to get their stuff together. But even beyond what Valiant Renegade was saying, keep in mind that not too very long ago we were talking about the fact that Penn secured ESPN Bet's exclusive rights to trademark for 10 years with an option to extend for another 10 years. And Penn will pay $1.5 billion in cash to ESPN over the next decade and grant approximately $500 million in shares. Now, this is about the best thing Disney had to offer during its share meeting. They talked a lot about this as a big positive, but now Amazon is potentially going to be getting at least part of this. And let's say Disney sells ESPN to Amazon outright. They get it all. So if this is the biggest thing that Disney has to say for itself, hey, we're licensing betting rights, and whatever money we were gonna get might actually not even be going to us. Now it might be going to Amazon, part or in whole. Disney's in trouble. That's what I'm gonna say.
You think so?
I do.
Iger would probably argue differently.
Well, he's pretty delusional. I mean, his claim to fame is being a professional weather guesser. So,
Can Disney afford to do this?
Hey, if you could have a job being wrong half the time and still get paid, it would beat working. That's weatherman for you. That's Bob Iger for you.
Can Disney afford to do this?
No, they really can't. And a lot of people now are speculating that a lot of the Hulu, this is even worse. They gotta pay for Hulu, right? So they're literally going to be paying their competitor a metric crap ton of money they don't have. So how are they going to make up the difference? A lot of people are speculating it's going to be in stocks. They're basically selling themselves to their competitors. This is a lose-lose situation Disney has gotten itself into, and I don't think the pixie dusters have a clue about these financial matters.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they do, but check out Valiant Renegade's commentary on the matter as well. All right. What is this? Part of my dangling modifiers? That brings us to our next story. Cat person. I'm kidding. I don't know that's next.
What did someone say something about dangling participles? What?
Dangling modifier? I don't know.
Okay.
That strikes me as something that would get you in trouble at a tech convention, and you lose your job.
Well, you get canceled for it, right? Hashtag me too. Right?
That was a thing with some guys. They were making a joke about dongles, and some lady reporter was behind them and got the guys fired. Remember that whole thing? Even though it was just
I had not even heard.
It was just some frat humor, and they were talking to themselves. They weren't talking in front of other people. It was just they were making a joke about dongles or something.
God. We live in
she was
a
offended.
Damn world now.
This was years ago. I don't know.
It's just getting worse, man. It's just getting worse.
Okay, so let's go to the next thing, huh?
Atari.
What?
Atari?
How can we do talking about Atari? Atari is something in the past.
I know. This was what are we talking about? The 1970s here? What is
this? Ridiculous. It's like what? Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You know.
Apparently, a new Atari 2600 will play all the old cartridges.
What the heck? I don't believe this. Atari has announced it's relaunching its most well-known console as the Atari 2600 Plus on November 17th for $129.99. With pre-orders open now, it's a fully functioning 80% scale HDMI outputting version of the console that comes with a 10-in-1 game cartridge. Atari says it even supports both 2600 and later 7800 game cartridges and will work with the original joystick and paddle controllers. Aside from being a little smaller and gaining HDMI and USB-C ports, the 2600 Plus is mostly unchanged. The front
That's pretty impressive just there. You know,
the USB-C ports, huh?
Well, I mean, that's like getting a 57 Chevy with fuel injection. You know, I mean, that's just wow.
Or like the DeLorean with the future tech in it,
right?
Doc Brown had. Okay, the front bears a strip of wood paneling with a light-up Atari logo, while 4 toggle switches flank its cartridge slot. Atari says the cartridge socket is a little bigger to help with sticking cartridges. On the back, by the HDMI and USB-C outputs, you'll find 2 serial ports like those used in the original system. There's a video with some nice close-up pans you can check out too. The Atari 2600 is powered by Rockchip 3128 SoC, a low-power quad-core chip that's been around for more than a few years, but should prove more than enough to run old Atari games so you can relive the endless frustration of Pitfall. Naturally, it also supports that Mr. Run and Jump cartridge Atari released for the 2600 earlier this year. Oh yeah, there's like new cartridges coming out. For the Atari sometimes, so that's funny. If you want to add more controllers, the company is also selling CX40 Plus joystick and the CX40 Plus replica paddle controller.
Wow.
This is an Atari's first run at capitalizing on the nostalgia war trend Nintendo popularized with its NES Classic in 2021. Atari released the befuddling Atari VCS, a combo console and streaming TV box for the price of an Xbox Series S. Yeah, don't go that much. But a better pricing and compatibility of hundreds of old Atari cartridges probably gives this one more of a fighting chance. I'll say this: if they release more cartridges for this, like more of these 10-in-1s, that might be interesting.
Yeah,
like they give you a 10-in-1 with it, guys. Bring out more 10-in-1s, and bring out the games you haven't kept releasing over the years. Bring out like the Mountain King, as I mentioned, or Wizard of War. Put a lot of these other games that came out on the Atari. Pay the licensing fee and put these things out.
Exactly.
If you're selling them as cartridges, you should be able to do this now. Come on.
Right.
Maybe even the Atari Port of Pac-Man. Maybe, and you could have like the original version, and maybe someone could make a new version that actually works.
Oh, wait a minute! Can you imagine that? It'd be like Pac-Man Special Edition, and you could choose between the old crappy and the new hotness, right?
Yes, exactly. That'd be kind of funny. Sometimes they do that too with games, but I'll
be honest with you. If I could do that, if I could have both, I would from time to time go back and play the old crappy just for nostalgia reasons.
Apparently, ever heard of a game called Karateka? Karateka? Does it ring a bell?
Think so.
They're making a new version of that, but they're including like a special edition. It's like a retro thing with the old versions of it, but then you can play the newfangled version.
That's cool.
Too, so.
That's cool. Oh, it's kind of like I was messing around with in what's it called? Not Doom. What was the one you just
Quake?
Quake. Yeah, thank you.
You can change. Yeah, you can change the way it looks, can't you?
I did, and I played it for a little while in the old version. I'm like, wow, by comparison, this sucks. But it's kind of cool from a retro-ish kind of look to it.
It's funny, yeah, because it runs really smooth when you play the new version. But people keep forgetting when you played it on the PCs back in the day, it was choppy.
It was chonky. Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of neat that they let you put all that stuff. You can add or delete as much stuff as you want to make it look how you want it to.
Yeah,
and it's pretty nifty. Yeah. But
did you ever get like the
what?
The modifiers that you could do to turn the games into? Oh, you weren't a PC guy, so you couldn't do it that way. Never mind.
I don't do mods. I'm a console something. So people would say something very nasty. I'm a console gamer. I played Quake on the Nintendo 64. That was my experience with it. And you can download the N64 version in that version of Quake when you go into the there's a place where you can actually see what the N64 version looked like, and it was fairly impressive for the time. Even it has a different soundtrack too. The PC version was done by Trent Reznor.
It's funny how it even changes the menus to that
the N64
pixelated bits. Yeah.
It was more basic on the N64, but it was impressive they got it running at all.
Yeah.
And it had a completely different soundtrack made by Aubrey Hodges. And the weird thing about his soundtrack was it was kind of going for the same thing that Trent Reznor was doing, but it's different. It's that same ambient, creepy, like not really music almost. It's more like mood
tones.
music. Yeah, like tones and stuff. It's really interesting.
It was somewhere between music and sound effects,
So I don't know. So maybe this Atari thing will be worth checking out. We'll see. Put out some compilation cartridges for it. Do that, and you might pique my interest. Because
this is kind of a positive. It's nice, a little bit of retro, but unfortunately, that brings us to going in the opposite direction here.
Yeah. Charles Martinet will no longer be the voice of Mario. Charles Martinet, the legendary voice of Mario, who made his mainline debut as the plumber in Super Mario 64. Remember, it wasn't until the Nintendo 64 where they gave us Mario's voice. Yeah. He was always silent in the NES games and the Super Nintendo games. So this was the first time we had him speak. And it was funny. You'd let him stand still for a while, and he would fall asleep. And the character, if you left him on screen long enough, he'd fall asleep. And then he would start dreaming, and he'd go, spaghetti. Lasagna. Mamma mia. That's what he would say. It's like that's what he would dream about. Anyway, Charles Martinet, the legendary voice of Mario, who made his mainline debut in Super Mario 64, stepping back from the microphone and will no longer be recording his voice for Mario, Luigi, Wario, Waluigi, and many other characters. Nintendo made the announcement on Twitter today, confirming that the iconic voice actor will be stepping back from recording character voices from our games. But don't worry, as Martinet won't be stepping away from Mario entirely. Nintendo has created a brand new role for the actor, the Mario Ambassador. The brand new role will likely involve promoting the plumber's merchandise, movies, and of course the games. So we couldn't think of a better person to don the cap, but we'd be lying to say if we weren't heartbroken. Martinet is Mario to millions across the world, and we'll miss his voice massively. So from Nintendo Life and the community, we want to say a big thank you to the voice of a generation for shaping the iconic character and helping us fall in love with the plumber. And Warrior 2, of course. We don't know who will be replacing Martinet as the voice of Mario in the games, but we wish them the best of luck. This means that Martinet's last role likely be Super Mario Brothers Wonder, which is out this October. But wait a minute, there's an update on that. In a statement made to both IGN and Eurogamer, Nintendo has confirmed that Charles Martinet is not in Super Mario Bros. Wonder. That means both Mario and Luigi are voiced by a brand new voice actor in the upcoming platformer. Nintendo told both publications that while Charles is not involved in the game, we're excited to honor his legacy and contributions, including looking ahead to what he'll be doing as a Mario ambassador. Character voice actors from Mario and or Luigi in Super Mario Bros. Wonder will be credited in the game's credits, so please wait for the game to be released. What? We'll have to wait until 20th October to find out who has taken up the mustache. This is causing all sorts of like I don't know, like insanity in the community right now. You there?
Yeah, I'm listening.
I'm just.
You are instructing me, and I am taking in all the info.
I don't know why they're getting rid of him. Maybe he's getting older, and they're worried he may croak at some point, and they don't want to have this happen midstream while they're starting a new Mario series. Maybe I don't know what the reason was. They're not being cruel about it because they're giving him another official role. They're probably going to pay him the same salary they did regardless.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're trying to cast him. He'll be the Mario ambassador, but there must be a reason they want to go. They're probably wanting to go with a younger actor because maybe they're thinking Martinet may not be with us forever. He's 67 right now.
Well, and
yeah,
the thing, especially after, like today with all the in remembrances, we start to realize there's oftentimes things going on behind the scenes we are not aware of. There may be a health issue that we know nothing about. Not that we have any business knowing. It's not anything they are under any obligation to share with us. But these are some of the things that go into
decision making.
That kind of decision making. It's true.
Like Arleen Sorkin couldn't do her last role of Harley Quinn was in the first Batman Arkham Asylum game. She didn't reprise the role in Arkham City. They had to get a new actress because of
the MS.
Because yeah, maybe.
And that was something I meant to mention at the top of the show when we were talking about her. If you guys are so inclined and moved with sadness over the loss of Arleen Sorkin, maybe consider a little donation to MS Research.
Oh, sure, definitely. Nice. I feel like Nintendo is quietly distancing themselves from the stereotypical Italian accent. I'm guessing the new Mario won't have an accent. I don't know. Now I don't know what to think.
Well, as long as they don't get, overt about it and have some, young voice actor coming out and saying, it's not 1980, very obviously so, and start, that kind of crap. Because let's face it, there is nobody in the Italian community who ever had a problem with any of this.
No, it's all in good fun. Well, this goes on to when they did Super Mario Odyssey and they had Mario wearing a sombrero on the cover, and then people were screaming about it, and they were
nobody
saying
in Mexico ever said
cultural appropriation. Whereas all Latin Americans, oh, it's cool, he's wearing a sombrero. They thought that was cool. He was in the poncho and the sombrero.
Especially when you consider this is meant to be a funny character. You're not meant to take anything too seriously,
They kept it in the game, but they got rid of it from the cover.
There's nothing hurtful about it. There's nothing, I mean, yeah, maybe it's stereotypical, but not stereotypical in like a, negative way.
You have to understand, in a Mario Odyssey, you're going to all these different lands, but I guess they're lands inspired by our world, but they're in, of course, the Mushroom Kingdom world. So when he goes to the place that's obviously based on Mexico, all the characters in there, instead of like Mushroom Kingdom people, they all look like they have like Day of the Dead style faces, like the colored skulls. You understand?
Oh, okay, sure.
And Bowser attacked their village and froze everything because, of course, I think it's bad because they're like a desert community and everything's frozen, so you have to figure out a way to unfreeze things. And it's anyway, but
CK makes a great point. Wouldn't be too surprising if they don't have a voice actor who sounds very similar to Chris Pratt.
No, I don't want that.
You don't want that, but you do understand the desire for a synergistic relationship between their live action and their current video games.
Okay, so here's what's going on with the Super Mario Brothers movie. When I was growing up with Super Mario Brothers on the NES, and especially that cartoon series they had on, he was from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
He had a Brooklyn accent. In fact, the first movie with Bob Hoskins, he's also from Brooklyn. He had a Brooklyn accent. So they had him have a Brooklyn accent in the Mario Brothers movie they made recently because they were trying to, I think, go back to what they did with the old Mario Brothers cartoon where he was originally from Brooklyn and he fell through a pipe into the magical mushroom kingdom, as opposed to him being dropped off there by accident by the stork, which is what Nintendo did later, which I thought was kind of dumb. I'll be honest with you. And I don't. How would you have an Italian accent if you were dropped by the stork? Unless everyone in the Mushroom Kingdom had Italian accent. It doesn't make any sense. I'm thinking too much about this. That's
with a bunch of guys running around named Goombas. I mean,
Yes. Of course, you find out in the RPGs not all Goombas are bad. Some Goombas help you out. Like it's kind of, the Mario universe is very nuanced. Okay, it's just
that's good.
So I don't know, but I don't. For all I know, they're gonna have Chris Pratt do his voice, but I don't think I'd like that. Though they could probably do it. Not that I had anything against Chris Pratt's portrayal.
See,
but
the problem with that is though, then you start getting into. How much does it cost to get Chris Pratt to do the voice for your?
He'd be pricey. And the movie Super Mario Brothers movie, I kind of consider that its own thing. It's an amalgamation of all various things Mario over the last 30 years. It makes little references, but it's not a direct adaptation of the games. It's more like an original movie inspired, or an homage, or an original movie inspired by the games, which is fine, and I liked it. I enjoyed it, but the games are their own thing, and the games even kind of play loose with the continuity sometimes too. Like there's like the Mario RPG series. Like, is that canon? Is that its own thing? I don't know. And I'm thinking about this too much, and I should just enjoy the games, because it's the Mushroom Kingdom.
Right.
He's saving Princess Toadstool from the Mushroom Kingdom. It's Princess Peach, excuse me, Princess Peach. I think you learn later on Peach is her nickname, and that just kind of stuck. Nintendo changes names too, because it's always Princess Toadstool. Then Super Mario 64, she goes, "Yours truly, Peach," and then it says Princess Toadstool. Like, okay, the name is changing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how in the Sonic games he was called Dr. Eggman in Japan. He was called Dr. Robotnik in the States, which I thought was a better name for him, right? It's creepier sounding, don't you think, Dr. Robotnik?
Yeah.
So they kind of had their cake and ate it too. They made Sonic in the movies call him Dr. Eggman as a slur, as an insult, because he was in like an egg-shaped craft. It's Dr. Eggman, that's. So they kind of played it both ways. Anyway, I'm off on track. Sad to see Charles Martinet go. I think Nintendo is trying to do their best, and they're not throwing him to the wolves. He could be the Mario ambassador, and if he wants to show up at a grocery store chain in the Mario outfit, I don't think they'll sue him or anything, like the Lone Ranger. Okay, that's
right.
That's what I'm thinking. The Lone Ranger. It's a pity though. Charles Martinet said if they ever wanted him to do Link, he had a voice ready for Link, but they never had Link speak.
Interesting.
Which is going to be interesting if they ever do a Legend of Zelda movie.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if they made his character mute in the movie.
Oh, yeah, right?
I don't know. Because he always yells and stuff in the games, but he never talks. He never speaks. It's this weird thing where he's like a silent protagonist. But I don't know. What are we talking about Lucky Charms for? I'm Irish, and I don't mind Lucky Charms Leprechaun. It's actually funny. If you ever watch Coleman Meaney, I mean, Coleman Meaney from Star Trek.
Absolutely,
he's a big Irish actor. He has a wonderful interview where he's talking about there's the Hollywood Irish accent and then there's the Irish accent, and they're two different things, because no one in Ireland talks in this Hollywood Irish accent.
Exactly right.
But I've made a joke that if you watch British television shows and you see an American character on the show and you're saying he's the American character, but something's not quite right, and I realize it's a British actor doing an American accent. And the trouble is, it almost sounds too American. That's what throws you off. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, usually that's the case, because usually British actors really do their best to get the accents right.
A lot of them do. I mean, certain actors. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch when he was Doctor Strange, he's yeah.
But then you go back to the 80s. I'm thinking of a couple of the Doctor's companions. One was supposed to be American, one was supposed to be Australian, and it was like, oh my God! Just wouldn't it be better to just you're from America, you studied in England, and you got an English accent. I'm fine with it. Just go with it. No.
Perry's accent kept changing. She kept going between American accents, and I love the actress playing her for
I do
a number
too.
of reasons. But
she was beautiful, and she was so nice to the fans.
Yes,
but
that's part of its charm, though, right?
I guess it is. It kind of goes with the rubber suited aliens and all that kind of stuff, I suppose.
And the wonderful 80s Cybermen, which were still the best Cybermen.
I kind of agree with you on that. Yeah.
They looked creepy because they made a point that the only part of them that you saw that moved like a human was their bottom of their mouth. And it looked creepier because it's like, yeah, there's still something of a person in there, but that's it. And I imagined underneath, even though they kind of wore like these spacesuit kind of loose outfits, I imagined there was metal underneath those. I always imagined it was completely metal underneath, you know.
Well, I'll be honest with you though, in the later, you know, what was it, the 10th and 11th Doctor eras, where it got real like Borg-ish, you know, human being clamped into a body, and that's like some pretty horrific type stuff.
Well, they were always supposed to be horrific in that manner, though. Even in the old series, but it was just I miss the fact on the 80s Doctor, he always had the same actor always playing the cyber leader, and he was always like he was like a returning villain, like a Davros or a Master.
Yeah, and even if you destroyed him, you could still bring him back because that consciousness
as a different leader. Yeah, and it was just, I don't know. I think Neil Gaiman wrote a pretty good Cyberman episode during the Matt Smith era, which the BBC forced him to make it a one-parter because who are you, Neil Gaiman?
I know.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Let's not get into boneheaded decisions the BBC have made. Get the link voice actor for the cartoon show. Excuse me, Princess. I remember that I was watching a little video on the Legend of Zelda cartoon they did at the same time, and they said that the creators didn't have much to operate off of. They had the Bible Nintendo gave them, so they did their best, but they said the inspiration for it was moonlighting. They based the relationship between him and Zelda.
I can kind of see that. Yeah.
Which was kind of funny, which I don't know. Maybe they should play around with if they ever do a Zelda movie. I don't know. We'll see if that's a good idea or not. Time to move on, though. No more Charles Martinet as Mario. And I don't know how I feel. I kind of wish this next Mario game, this should have been like his last outing as the voice, I thought.
But like I said, we don't know what might be going on behind the scenes.
We don't. Plus, this could be the start of a brand new Mario series. So maybe they're trying to now.
You need to maintain the continuity. I get
continuity, yeah. Okay. Maybe they should contribute voice acting to Super Mario RPG remake and just have him do that and do it in that. That way, that could be like his final bow.
Yeah.
Dune Part 2 delayed to 2024 amid strikes.
Yep. And even though I don't have an article on it, the rumor that's going around, I'm calling it a rumor because I haven't researched the citations yet. Looks like Off-White is being postponed too.
Yeah, that's probably the deleted scenes. Was thinking it's going to be shoved on Disney Plus, which would probably be the smart decision. I'm sorry, you're not going to put out a Pinocchio movie with Tom Hanks in the lead. Which I'm sorry, he's a big actor. How did he become a streaming actor? I don't know how that happened. You can stick Snow White on there with. Who's in Snow White? You have Gal Gadot as the queen.
And 7 hippies.
And your lead actress throwing the leading man under the bus that's starting her. What are you doing here?
So they may not even have a prince by the time this is done. Yeah. Doesn't matter. He makes his money anyway.
The story of Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, will be continued on March 15th. Warner Brothers made the announcement Thursday after Variety exclusively reported last month that the company was eyeing a 2024 date for the sci-fi tentpole. Legendary Entertainment co-produced Dune Part 2 with Warner Brothers Film Group, and both parties had to agree on a new release date. As part of the shift, Godzilla vs. Kong, the New Empire, which was previously dated for March 14th, is getting pushed back 1 month to April 12th. The film is also being produced by Legendary Warner Brothers and is the latest entry in the MonsterVerse franchise. I guess Warner Brothers and Legendary made up, because, okay. I know they were angry about the day and date stuff, but... The Dune delay comes as the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes continue to drag on. Due to SAG-AFTRA strike, actors may not do press for any struck films, which would have meant their star-studded Dune cast would not have been in the press circuit for the big-budget film. The date change is not expected to have a material impact on IMAX, who has fall product and titles like The Equalizer 3, Wonka, and The Marvels, assuming none of those titles move on the calendar as well. Both Warner Brothers and Legendary are confident that next year's spring break for students and Easter holiday would provide a runway for both titles to succeed. In addition to Chalamet, the Dune Part 2 cast includes Zendaya, Austin Butler, Florence Pugh, Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, Dave Bautista, Christopher Walken, Leia Seydoux, and more. As Variety reported last month, Warner Brothers was also assessing possible delays to 2024 for The Color Purple, December 25th, and The Aquaman and the Last Kingdom, December 20th. But the studios plan to retain December dates for both titles. They're going to put off Aquaman. Maybe you're better off not having the actors promote that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no kidding.
And The Color Purple is still coming out. I guess
here's something else to keep in mind. They're going to use this as an excuse and say, well, we need the marketing. We need them for the marketing. We don't want to release it without the marketing. So this is why we're pushing it off. And then they blame force majeure for why they're losing money because, you know, let's face it, there's outstanding debts that have to be paid on these films. We talked about this when the COVID lockdown started. And every month that goes by that a movie isn't released that was scheduled to be released and is in the can and ready to go, that's dollars they're paying out in interest on debts. But it's also, I believe, going to be used as a reason for, like you said, maybe they just throw this loser of a film, and I'm talking about Off-White and Aquaman. Maybe they just toss them out on their streaming services and say, screw it, and pay out what they got to pay out, and claim force majeure and, you know, whatever.
See, Aquaman, I still don't have high hopes that that's going to do well, but the first one was a huge hit.
It doesn't really matter how well it does. The amount of money that they've put into it and the amount of reshoots and the amount of delays has cost it so much. The price tag on this, they will never recoup, even if they break $1 billion.
Listen to this, though. Sony is the only other major studio to delay several of its movies amid the strikes. Last month, the company pushed back Kraven the Hunter and a Ghostbusters Afterlife sequel to 2024, in addition to removing Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse from the release calendar, and Dune Part 2 isn't the only Zendaya star movie to get delayed. MGM's Challengers, a tennis drama starring Zendaya, Mike Feist, and Josh O'Connor also moved to next year. I'm disappointed about the Ghostbusters Afterlife thing. This was my first time reading about this.
I am too. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't know how much more filming there even had to be done, to be honest with you.
No, I think they're putting it off because of the SAG-AFTRA strikes, because they can't have the actors promote the movie.
For the promotion. And look, that's a margin call, right? Do you need them for the marketing?
It's hard to say.
Is the amount of money you're losing by pushing it off going to be offset by the money you make because you have them involved in the marketing? I could see making that argument for Ghostbusters. I can, because I do believe that everybody involved in that film would be valuable in the marketing. They would be. Whereas something like Off-White, it's like, you're better off with these people keeping their mouths shut and not being seen.
Yeah, from March to April, I think that's what the article said. Godzilla versus Kong. Didn't know they're doing a Godzilla versus Kong sequel. That's interesting.
And keep in mind, something like that, Matanui, that could also be a ripple effect. You know, it's like, well, everything else is being moved up, so we're going to move this forward as we're moving stuff in behind it, type stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, it feels like this is going to be, I had a summer where nothing came out that I really wanted to see except for maybe Mission Impossible. And of course we have Angel Studios doing their thing, but they're kind of their own thing. Like Hollywood, I don't know. I feel like I feel kind of checked out of the theater going experience now.
Yeah.
Because the big movie I was looking.
What this creates, though, I mean, here's the minor silver lining, I suppose. it creates a situation where the only films that are going to make money, the only films that even have a chance, have to be good. They have to get butts in the seats, right? And things like Aquaman and I have to believe they know this behind the scenes. Aquaman and Off-White are not going to make money no matter what they do. Okay, but you'd almost argue that Dune 2 is going to do well no matter what they do. Within reason. I mean, we've seen Hollywood snatch defeat from the jaws of victory
I don't know.
repeatedly. I do want to throw this out there as well. Let me look at StreamYard again. So at the 1 hour 53-minute mark, I'm dropping a link. Nerd Cookies did a great video.
Nerd Cookies
about Dune Part 2 getting delayed. And she goes into some of her own opinions about silver linings, some of which may be different from mine. Definitely check out that video. If for no other reason, she's got just a great speaking voice. She is wonderful.
We all like fresh baked Nerd Cookies, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. She's so sweet. I mean, I realize I just made a little pun there, but she really is,
Oh, yeah, I liked it too. I hope, like they did with Maverick, I feel like people are sick of seeing Maverick merch and it hurt the movie, so I'm tired of it before it's out. Oh, well, that happened with Ghostbusters Afterlife. The cereal was out on shelves. I got it. I remember I bought the cereal. I was eating some before.
And remember what I said at the time. I thought that worked great for marketing because it was like every month you had some other piece of merch coming out, whether it was a food item or, some of the toys and whatnot. And I said, this is great marketing. It is keeping the hype. It is building the hype, so they really made, lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah. So we'll see.
And yeah, the thing about food items is they don't last. So you got to put them out within a certain amount of time. The downside was there was a couple of food items we were supposed to get related to Ghostbusters that they rebranded. They had a blue cream filled, I think it was like a Twinkie or something like that.
Oh.
And that was supposed to kind of go, it was supposed to be a Ghostbusters muncher themed type of thing. And they changed it and instead turned it to like a blue raspberry or something. And they went with a tropical thing on it and whatnot. It's kind of a bummer. It's like you still got the product out there, but I would have bought it, if it was a muncher thing, just because Ghostbusters,
I suspect that a lot of these, you have all this weird merchandising. Like they had Happy Meal toys for the Super Mario Brothers movie, like a few months before it was out. I was like, did they delay that movie? And that's what happened. And these were supposed to coincide with the movie release. And just, I don't get it.
CK says we need to bring back High C Ecto Cooler. Let me tell you, the fans are clamoring for it. They're shouting for it. So I would be really shocked. Huh?
Coca-Cola, make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
Ghostbusters is a thing again. Make it happen. I know Sony's planning to do more stuff.
If you're really interested, hit me up later. I'll hook you up with a video or two by some other YouTubers that have cracked the code, and you can make your own.
That was my go-to when I was in middle school. It was the Ecto Cooler, and
it was tasty.
And it was the orange. We can still get the orange. You can even get the orange at McDonald's if you want to get orange High C. They have it at McDonald's.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a Ghostbusters one of the Ghostbusters outlets, one of the fan groups, and I can't remember. I want to say they're in the New York area, but I can't remember exactly. Maybe it was the Buffalo Ghostbusters, who they did phenomenal research looking into Ecto Cooler and going based on the company that put it out and whatnot, and talking to people that worked for the company and whatnot, finding out that it was really just a mixture of certain products that are still on the market today and how you can make it yourself. So
yeah. So if you can't buy it, like I said, the fans have to do the best stuff, right? Sometimes, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Justin Timberlake's new Netflix movie features a surprising actor reunion.
Yeah, I had to kind of dig into this a little bit. This kind of surprised me a little bit. It was one of those things where I read the article and I was like, oh, right.
Yeah, post the link if you would.
Yeah,
Let's see here. I was surprised. I don't know if you were familiar with these two actors being in a movie together before.
Vaguely. I didn't until, like I said, until I looked at it again, I was like, oh my gosh, that's right. Kind of a thing.
People will feature Justin Timberlake as well as a surprising reunion for two 90s stars, making it one to look out for in Netflix's roster. Netflix's new film Reptile casts Justin Timberlake in a considerable role, but also features two major actors whose reunion adds additional star power to the upcoming movie. Reptile, set to be released on October 6th, is written and directed by Grant Singer and will serve as his feature film directorial debut. Singer is known for his work in the music industry and has directed music videos for high-profile artists such as The Weeknd, Sam Smith, and Camila Cabello, but will now try his hand at success at a new crime thriller, Reptile. Although Singer's expertise may fall within the music industry, his efforts on Reptile are assisted by cinema regulars. Reptile is largely co-written by the Trust director Benjamin Brewer. In addition, its screenplay is co-written by the charismatic 90s legend actor Benicio del Toro.
Mm-hmm.
Del Toro, recognized for performances in cinema favorites from 1995's Usual Suspects to his more recent role in MCU movies as the hoarding antagonist in The Collector.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? I may need to watch this. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
The Collector in the MCU, that guy. Okay, they call him a hoarder. I'm thinking having a hoarding villain might be interesting. But
well, yeah, kind of. It was from Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Okay. We'll also lead Reptiles cast a character alongside Justin Timberlake, Michael Pitt, Sky Ferreira, and one other actress he's excitedly already had the pleasure of acting with before. Reptile reunited Del Toro with another prominent celebrity of the 90s era, clueless superstar Alicia Silverstone. Yep. Once before, Del Toro and Silverstone managed to combine their star power for the 1997 film Excess Baggage, where Silverstone played a teenager named Emily who faked her kidnapping by locking herself in the trunk of a car, and Del Toro co-starred as the car thief, Vincent, who stole the vehicle unaware she was inside. The action comedy was a critical and commercial failure, despite having notable household names in the leads. But Silverstone and Del Toro will have another shot at impressing audiences side by side with the upcoming of Netflix's Reptile. Both actors were reportedly excited to reunite on the set of Reptile and have spoke highly of one another in interviews that were recorded during production. Wow, think about actors championing each other. Well, yeah. While championing the movie they're working on.
Well, because
I'm sorry.
Back then, I mean, as it really should be. These were co-workers. I've been an actor, right? I know what it's like to be in a production, especially a long-term one with somebody, and you build up these camaraderies, right? They're your co-workers for all intents and purpose, right?
Yeah, Benicio del Toro was brilliant in the movie Sicario. He actually should have gotten an Oscar nom for that movie. But,
and that movie they were talking about, I'm forgetting the name. You just read it too.
Excess Baggage.
Excess Baggage. I remember seeing that years ago on. I'll be darned if I remember where, if it was a rental or if it was a cable or something. But I did see the movie.
Yeah. It was great reconnecting with her. Alicia brought everything we wanted for the character and more. Silverstone reciprocated with fondness for the history mentioned. There's a deep mutual respect and appreciation, so that makes it work well. I was honored that they asked me to do it and that he wanted to work with me again. Alicia Silverstone, she fell off the map. You know what I blame for that? Batman and Robin.
That she became a vegan? Oh, what? I don't know.
Batman and Robin.
That did kind of
killed
her
career. I think that killed her career.
It kind of hurt O'Donnell's.
Yeah, hurt Chris O'Donnell until
he hadn't gotten that cop show. I don't know where he would have ended up. What wasn't it, an NCIS or something like that? Boomer, did we lose you? Is it just me, guys, or are you not hearing Boomer either?
I don't hear Boomer.
Okay. Well, Boomer, let me double check my StreamYard and make sure you're still with us. I mean, I see your icon there. And of course I'm letting you guys know because I'm like 15 seconds ahead of you all. So if he were to drop out of StreamYard, I'd see it before you guys did. But yeah, anyway, and yes, he just did. So you know what I'm going to do? Because I don't have anything else to say about the last topic. I'm going to go ahead and drop the next article, and I'm going to open it up and start reading. So I kind of front loaded a little bit by talking about this last night, hopefully to whet Big Al's appetite to come back and watch this, at some point in the future. This is from Deadline. Cat Person release date, trailer unveiled. Emily Jones and Nicholas Braun lead darkly comic dating thriller from Susanna Vogel. And I'm, if you guys are like me, you don't even know what the heck this Cat Person is. And I'm thinking, is this reboot, rehash related to the movie Cat People? I don't know. Let's read. After world premiering to much buzz at Sundance back in January, the darkly comedic dating thriller Cat Person has finally unveiled a first trailer and release date, having been set to open in U.S. theaters via Rialto Pictures beginning October 6th. An adaptation of Kristen Rupenian's viral New Yorker short story, fully financed by Studio Canal, Cat Person looks at the brief relationship between 20-year-old college sophomore Margaret, Coda's Amelia Jones, and somewhat older Robert, Succession's Nicholas Braun, from the perspective of both characters as a means of commenting on the experience of dating today. In an appearance alongside her leads at Deadline's Sundance studio earlier this year, Pix DGA award-winning director Susanna Vogel noted that the idea of toggling back and forth between the points of view of her protagonists was compelling, in that it allowed her to explore miscommunications and the cultural baggage that men and women bring into dating, particularly in our post #MeToo movement. Men are afraid that women will laugh at them. Women are afraid that men will kill them. I have thoughts. Reads the Margaret Atwood quoting, yeah, exactly. Margaret Atwood quoting, quote, serving as the film's epigraph, which perfectly sums up the characters' disparate perspectives on their shared dating experience. Also starring Geraldine Viswanathan, Hope Davis, Michael Gandolfini, Lisa Koshy, Fred Melamed, Isaac Powell, Isabella Rossellini, and Donald Elise Watkins. Cat Person is scripted by Michael Ashford. Jeffrey Steckler and Coda Nast Entertainment, the New Yorker Studios. Helen Eastbrook produced the film with Vogel, Ashford, and Daniel Hank aboard as EPs. And at that link that I shared with you there, you can watch the trailer if you are so inclined, because women are afraid that men will kill them, apparently. So we still have no Boomer back. So I am going to first say, yeah, I think it's about time that we get past the Me Too thing. I think that this is more of that cultural, what do you call? Oh, yeah. Deleted scenes. Great point. 500 Days of Summer, but woke. Exactly. And look, what do we mean by woke? Let's be very, very clear that woke does not mean what they think it means. Woke doesn't just mean progressive. Okay. Doesn't just mean liberal. It doesn't just mean, it means intersectional. It means divide everyone, set everyone against themselves, whether it's race, gender, preference, age, country of origin, whatever it is. They want us fighting amongst ourselves because that's how they bring in their Marxism. Okay, people, let's be very clear about what we're talking about here. It is, you've made this is, in fact, it is the opposite of being progressive, because we have already made progress. They want to undo that progress. We want to undo the equality between the sexes. We want to undo the equality between races, where you can't discriminate against people because of their color or their gender or any of these other things. No, we've got to find a way to, set people against each other once again. I hate speaking for Boomer because, I know he wanted to talk about this, but I know one of the things he was saying is he fears that this is going to be something that really rallies and speaks to the Barbie crowd. Anyone that went to Barbie and thought it was such a great, movie is going to want to see this film. I'll be nice because it's not my show, even though I've taken over and I have the reins. I have the power. Let me drop this also for you. This is a unrelated article that absolutely has a perspective on it. This is when saying yes is easier than saying no. This is from the New York Times. This is an old article. This is from back in 2017.
Hi.
Oh, welcome back, Age Boomer. How are you doing?
My internet went out, okay?
I
don't
figured
know
it was
what
like
caused it.
No, I figured it was something like that.
I texted you, but yeah, okay.
Oh, you know what? Because I just jumped right into
the cat person
juggling. Huh? Yeah.
What have we talked about? Okay.
So I read the article. I started on some of my own commentary, and then I just dropped the article to the when saying yes is easier than saying no. But you know what? Let's just back up a little bit. And I've read the article, so I gave my 2 cents on this movie.
Cat person?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it?
Okay, this short story, since you read the article already, thank you for going ahead with this.
Absolutely.
This short story was all the rage years ago, and to be fair, I will say, in this modern climate, for a short story to break through anywhere, that's a big deal, especially by an unknown writer. But of course, this was coming at the height of the Me Too movement, and it was about a young lady who works at a concession stand, a movie theater, and she goes home with this guy, older guy, and has regrettable sex, I guess, and then he doesn't want anything. Then he calls her a whore and texts and something, and well, if you read the story, you have an idea. But I would
say, without having read the article, or excuse me, without having read the story myself, whatever the story's narrative is, there are toxic relationships out there. Let's be clear about that. So that in and of itself is fine.
Yes.
Let's not overgeneralize that, though.
Yes. But yeah, it's just I don't know. I got the impression that it was a very Me Too era story, and I remember a lot of the hoopla. There was, I think, that quote from the New York Times article, when sometimes no means yes and sometimes yes means no, and I remember there were a lot of young men saying, like Danger Will Robinson, stay away from that. That's that's scary stuff, because I'm thinking, yeah, sometimes yes can mean no 5 months after the fact too, right?
Absolutely. And I did drop the link to the article. Did you want to dig into that? Because I didn't get as far as reading the article.
No, the only reason I bring up cat person, and the reason I brought it up, is you probably talked, or did you give your comments on the trailer? I don't know if you saw the trailer for the movie, or
yes, I did, especially the Margaret Atwood quote, which obviously I have problems with.
Well, I have a problem with it because it's just not true. Maybe men don't admit to being afraid of being attacked by another man, but of course there's always that thing. Like, if you're a guy and you're walking down a city street late at night, you're going to be looking over your shoulder. I mean, this is not.
This is from millions of years of evolution. This is not, a modern, social construct.
Yeah, but anyway,
humans gonna human, people.
Anyway, so I probably got derailed by the internet going up, but my reason I was bringing this article up was that I think I'm curious as to whether or not this movie is going to be a big hit or not.
I hope not.
sentiment.
Yeah. I mean, I did kind of, because you weren't here, I kind of was just filling in and didn't want to speak for you, but I kind of spoke for you because you had mentioned your concern is that this is going to be appealing very much to that Barbie crowd. Did we lose him again? Damn it.
It's not like you can't carry on, dear.
I can carry on if I have to. Let me just double check.
There
you are. Okay.
Anyway, maybe we should wrap it up soon. We can skip the Jennifer Aniston or save it till next week. Jennifer Aniston doesn't like cancel culture. She wants.
You know what? I think that one will keep. I don't feel like that's terribly time sensitive.
Anyway, Cat Person looks like a disgusting movie, but we'll see if it draws an audience because of the current climate we're living in. Because I'm still trying to wrap my head over what it was about the Barbie movie that made it the success that it was, and if it's because it had an anti-man sentiment, then maybe that will carry over into Cat Person. There.
Yeah.
Margaret Atwood is a nutcase. I avoid anything she's involved with.
That is absolutely true. Unfortunately, though, she is a catalyst for people's itching ears because there is enough people that want to believe the crap she puts out and use her as some sort of a spokesperson.
So we'll see how this movie turns out. It looks like she's wanting to kill the guy she had the one night with or something. So I don't know. I don't want to see this movie, but I'm curious to see what kind of, if it's going to be a cultural touchstone or not, much like the short story was. I think if it is, that won't be good for the mood of this country going forward.
Oh, this will absolutely pull in the Barbie crowd. It'll bring in the Handmaid's Tale crowd, all of that.
I guess there's a Handmaid's Tale crowd. All right, but on that note, I think we should call it a night before I lose my internet again.
Fair enough. So go hit the little boys or girls' rooms or whatever these days. Get yourself a refreshment, top off your drink, preferably not in the little boys or girls or whatever's room, and get back to your computers so that you can close out your weekend with deleted scenes. The Other Side of Midnight. There is the link for you. I don't see anything on the docket until Wednesday. Am I correct, Age of Boomer?
I'm sorry, what?
I don't see anything else on the docket until Wednesday.
Yes, Wednesday correct? I will be on with Soundtrack to Birdman. We're going to try for a anniversary stream where we will do another rewatch of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So be sure to tune into that on his channel. That'll be at I believe 9 Eastern, but I better double check with him. Yeah. And let's see here though. We have Stop Saying Barbie. I hate that doll. Spent a lot of time in my room cutting all the hair off my sister friend's dolls. Oh, that's fun.
And that's Lady Mist saying that. If Lady Mist is saying it, that's that carries a lot of weight in my opinion. So there you go.
So Thursday, what you got going on?
Well, Thursday we're over on Netter's Network. Very special week for Netter's Network. Returning guest Tom Conkle, who is the writer and director of a film that he is announcing this week called Island in the Stars. Folks, we have been talking about how much we are hurt by and disgusted by what's happened to our favorite franchises. And we're saying, just leave them the hell alone, right? Just make your own stuff. Well, guess what? Tom Conkle is doing exactly that. He's bringing in he's bringing in some talent for this. We will talk more about that on Thursday. He is doing the launch. I think the launch is officially on Tuesday, but I believe there is going to be a crowdfund. So we will talk all about that with Tom himself on Thursday over on Netter's Network. That's 9 Central, 10 Eastern. And of course, there is the link to the stream. It's already up.
Cool.
Netter is way more together than I am because then on Friday, I don't have the link up yet, but I do know what the topic is going to be. We will be talking about physical media with Greg from Fanzine. I'll mostly kicked off by that article that we were talking about today, the release of Mandalorian and Loki and WandaVision, but we're going to expand out a little bit from there. And if I can get another guest who would also be a subject matter on this particular element, talk about how the embargo by these streaming services has fed the piracy beast, and how stupid marketing is just losing these companies money. I'll point to the soundtrack from Dial of Destiny. That's
that's a thing.
That's a huge thing, and I don't know if Soundtracks with Birdman's talked about it, but I would be surprised if we don't talk a little bit about that on Friday. If he wants to stop by, that would be great too.
Yeah, I'm interested in what he was saying about Margaret Atwood's comments about Star Wars being responsible for a certain day in September many years ago.
That takes some really effed up mental gymnastics to come to that idea.
Appointment television, yes sir. Deleted scenes. Okay, well, this has been a great little stream.
One last.
Oh, wait, Saturday. I forgot all about Saturday.
I know you're putting it out of your mind because it's got cat in the title, and you're still on Cat Person.
No.
But we will be over on Big Al Presents Films with Friends this Saturday. We will be watching the 1985, although there was a little bit of debate about what year it came out, Stephen King's Cat's Eye. Of course, again, we will be hosting it off platform on Cosme. The link will be provided. Whether I am doing it or Big Al is doing it, the link will be provided in the top of the chat, and we can watch it together on Saturday, which brings us around to the Sunday lineup of deleted scenes and Age of Boomer. And that's the week.
Yes, and be sure to check out Deleted Scenes channel at midnight tonight.
Yep.
And all I can say is cat people is better than cat person. Right?
You know what? That's even more profound, I think, than you realize. I really do feel like this intersectionalism is trying to drive us apart and make us all sad and lonely. Everyone hiding in their own houses with no connection to people, social distancing, only communicating over the internet where you can snipe at each other from behind keyboards. We're turning into the Bronze Era Krypton, and it is sad and disgusting. Yes, people are better than a person, okay? We are social animals. We have always been. We are based on, whether we were created by our creator to be that way or millions of years of evolution, we are social animals. And to deny that is to deny our nature. There you go.
Cinema Paradiso was next.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is Cinema Paradiso. That's right. And Netter doesn't have the link up because I haven't made the thing for her. So yeah, that link is actually for the following week. I apologize. My fault. But thank you so much for watching out for us, Mr. Blue Wrench. You are awesome. And I agree with you 100%. Natasha Kinski. She's wow.
Yes. All right. Well, on that note, y'all have a good week. Sorry about the interruption at the end. I'll have to listen to Troy's scandalous comments about Cat Person, I'm sure. No, I'm kidding. I don't know what you said.
I feel like I stole your thunder because I know you wanted to rant about it.
I was going to rant about it, but we'll wait till the movie comes out. We'll see if it's a hit or not.
We can rant about it then, yeah.
All right. But I just wanted to give you all fair warning that this could be coming in the future. I did not foresee what happened with Barbie. That completely blindsided me, and I'm worried it could happen again because I'm trying to pinpoint what it was about Barbie that made it the success it is. And I feel like the people who were dumbfounded by the Mario Brothers movie doing so well, why did that do well? And I knew why, but they didn't. Yeah. And now I feel like I'm on the other side of that. So, all right. I'll catch you all later, and y'all have a good week.
Bye-bye.